Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Tuesday, March 10th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we are officially live. We have had a bunch of things happen over the past 24 hours, in particular around oil prices and Trump's claim about the war coming to an end soon. In fact, if you kept up with what happened yesterday on the market close, the entire market reversed from the depths of the lows. And we had some pretty ugly lows yesterday. We ended up going green, up about 1% on the day. Oracle earnings are going to be after the bell, so we'll be covering Oracle earnings after the bell. They were not in the morning, but after the close, we'll talk about Oracle later throughout the day. S&P 500 right there at 677. Yesterday, we were at 678. At the lows, we were at 659. But based on the events that happened, and we'll talk about exactly how yesterday played out, we had, there's your V shape right there, a massive, massive reversal. We went from 687 to below 660, then up to 678. Hopefully today we can break above 680 and keep this trend intact. You have a red pre-market, but not that red of a pre-market. S&P is red a little bit. NVIDIA is red a little bit. Amazon's red a little bit. The majority of stocks are actually green. And if they're not green, they're very slightly red. You got Bitcoin above 70,000. Again, when we're thinking about risk on barometers, Bitcoin actually hit 71,000 in the morning. So we do have a lot of risk on assets that are showing that, maybe we are going to continuing this trend. But based on the comments of yesterday, based on the price of crude oil going from 120 to 85, it was almost like that day in January when silver had its 30% decline. The worst day for silver in about 20 years is basically what you saw for crude oil yesterday. If that continues to any level of what we saw yesterday, oil prices right here, all across the board, down about 4%. WTI is hitting 90 though in the pre-market, still down 4% from yesterday, but last night we were at 85. So obviously we gapped up a little bit, and that's probably due to Trump's comments last night, which we'll talk about. If we continue at least the trend of staying red on oil, then I think that should be good for the markets. And today, hopefully, we'll see if we can go 2 days in a row. So we got that to talk about. We got Oracle preview to do, as they will have earnings after hours. You have a bunch of different quotes that came out this morning, a bunch of other different headlines. Bill Ackman apparently is taking his hedge fund public. And so we'll kind of discuss the logic behind that. Obviously, a lot more people are thinking of going public in this environment, as we have Stripe and Discord, and Klarna already went public, SpaceX, etc. So you're seeing a bunch of more companies get interested in it. We'll talk about kind of the merits of it and if it makes sense. And then we'll get deeper into sort of analyzing what's happening in this war, which continues to have implications on the market. You have a bunch of headlines this market. You have, the real headline from yesterday is Iran potentially being open to some level of negotiation that can at least create a ceasefire. And I think that's why the markets have been calmed down a bit. Pete Hegseth did give a update, so we'll take a listen to some of the stuff that he said this morning. But overall, it does seem like this war is not necessarily slowing down yet, even if the market perceives it to be slowing down. And that's maybe why the market got a little bit of a relief yesterday after a pretty bloody open. We were down 2% and ended up 1%. It's one of the largest reversals we've had, honestly, since April of 2025. It wasn't like a 10% intraday S&P 500 reversal, but it was pretty ugly, and it turned out to be pretty damn good by the end of the day. So hopefully we can just keep that trend going intact. All right, let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you all again for being here this morning. I know I am early for people internationally because of daylight savings time, but that is going to be the new time that the show will start for everybody. And we will keep it going every day. Let's do the red or green poll right now in the chat and get started with that. And then we will keep going from there. Again, Oracle earnings, that's going to be the big one today after the bell. We will be doing Technical Tuesday as well, so we'll be covering Oracle, but right after that, we'll get into TT, and we'll kind of see if Oracle can put up some good results. My gut tells me Oracle's going to pump. I could be so wrong about this, but they're down 50% from the highs. They're not even at $175. So I kind of think that there's a good shot if Oracle says anything good about data center financing. The credit default swaps have already been priced into the stock, I think, given those have had such a big run. So they would have to have a really crappy earnings for this thing to fall back into like the 130s, which is where it was at during Liberation Day. I kind of don't see that happening. It did touch like 145 yesterday, but I think they will end up putting some good results in. Hopefully that'll get some momentum. And yes, tomorrow we have CPI. That is correct. Tomorrow we do have CPI, which will be very important because if we have a bad CPI, things can get kind of ugly. All right, let's get into it. Maverick says, I voted green because I love weed. You know, sometimes that's you got to vote with your interests. You got to vote with your interests. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start off with a recap of what happened yesterday, and then we will keep going from there. So this is the tweet that was heard around the world, and this was the tweet that moved trillions of dollars in the stock market yesterday. Trump called up CBS News, and he said, I think, quote, the war is very complete. Pretty much, they have no Navy, no communication. They've got no Air Force. He added that the U.S. is very far ahead of his initial 4 to 5 week estimated time frame, and that the war will be over soon. That was enough. That literally was enough. I mean, we were red on the day. We were kind of recovering, but we definitely weren't green. That tweet came out. That news headline hit the business wires of Trump saying, hey, I think the war is over soon. And then immediately the market started pricing in, well, wait a second. If Trump says he thinks the war is over soon, then maybe the war actually is over soon. And it's something that we have to take seriously. And we just started rallying. Now, I don't want to give the market too much benefit of the doubt right here because the market is incredibly volatile towards every little headline that comes out, good or bad. And it's one of those things that you can't take it that seriously. Something bad will come out and NVIDIA will drop 5 percentage points like it did on Friday when the Oracle headline came out. Oracle comes out the next day, says that's not true. Even if it was true, it wouldn't matter because Meta would just take up that data center. So the headlines that are going back and forth, I think, are incredibly volatile, but I don't know if they have a lot of merit towards it. The broader question why it might not have any merit is because after Trump said that he thinks the war is ending soon, he then did a joint press conference. This was the first press conference he did since the war began where he actually answered a ton of questions. And, he once again said that I think the war will be over soon, but it begs the question, okay, how is the war going to be over soon? And I asked this question to you guys last night. About 60% of you disagreed with Trump on the idea of the war being over soon, and 40% agreed that it would be over soon. First of all, the premise of this question is, what does soon mean? Because initially he said 4 weeks. Soon would have to be before 4 weeks. Otherwise, soon wouldn't actually be soon. So that means less than a month. Does it end in less than a month? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that, but let's say it does. I mean, the markets would be incredibly happy if it does. I just don't know if, we have the ability to end this in less than a month. Number two, this is sort of the double bind that I think Trump is in. Either we get a regime change in less than a month, and that marks the end of the war. Trump also tweeted that until Iran has complete and unconditional surrender of this war, that the United States is not going to leave. So is that able to be done in a month? Complete and unconditional surrender. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, right? If they'll actually leave that quickly. Or two, we leave before 4 weeks, or we leave before the regime changes within 4 weeks. So it continues to be soon in that time frame, but it's also not getting rid of the current regime. There is a new Ayatollah, by the way, the Ayatollah that the United States killed. His son has taken up that duty. And then the question becomes, okay, is Trump willing to work with him? He did not explicitly say yesterday that there's a target on his back, which begs the question, are you willing to work with him? Because if you're not willing to work with him, but you want a regime change, there's obviously a target on his back. So do they plan to get rid of him in the coming 4 weeks, and that is how the war ends soon? Or do they plan to work with that regime? And then, if they do, and that's how the war ends, it begs the question, well, wait a second, is that guy who just had his mother, father, and wife killed by the United States going to be the guy that wants to comply and be amicable with the United States in the future? It just seems unlikely. So there's more questions than answers around this idea of the war ending soon, given either you get a regime change, which might take longer than expected, which would not be soon, or you keep the current regime, which means why do we even do this in the first place for the Ayatollah's son to just come into power when the Ayatollah was already 85? Eventually he was going to pass away and his son was going to take power. So we just sped up the process, but we didn't actually change anything that happened in the region. And then Trump tweeted this in the morning: if Iran does anything that stops the flow of oil within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the United States of America 20 times harder than they have been hit thus far. Additionally, we will take out easily destroyable targets that will make it virtually impossible for Iran to be built back as a nation again. Death, fire, and fury will rain upon them, but I hope and pray it does not happen. This is a gift from the United States of America to China and all of those nations that heavily use the Hormuz Strait. Hopefully it's a gesture that will be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, I mean, now you've got Trump. Does this sound like someone who's going to end the war soon? I don't know. But he's making the argument that if Iran does anything that messes with the Strait of Hormuz, which, they've started to lax up a little bit on the Strait, but it's not like completely open the way it was before the war, they're going to be hit 20 times harder. And so I mean, the broader question, I think, for the market today is to try to figure out, hey, is Trump bluffing, or can we actually take him at his word, which is that the war is going to be ending soon? Again, the only reason the markets pumped yesterday, there is simply no other headline that I've seen other than when Trump said, hey, I think the war is going to end soon, to that random CBS reporter. That's when oil fell from like 95 to 85, literally within 10 minutes. The S&P went from 671 to 676. And you just had this massive move of capital that was based on this premise. Will that actually take place? That is the broader question. And, as of now, I don't think we fully know. Is this the taco? Is the broader question. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Here was Trump yesterday speaking about oil prices and more about Iran.
Continue Operation Epic Fury. We're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. In the long run, oil supplies will be dramatically more secure without the threat of Iranian ships, drones, missiles, nuclear menace, or anything. So the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain safe. We have a lot of Navy ships there. We have the best equipment in the world, inspecting for mines. Again, most of their ships are down at the bottom of the sea, but we will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world if they do anything. In recent years, the regime and its terror proxies have launched attacks on hundreds of commercial vessels. We're putting an end to all of this threat once and for all, and the result will be lower oil prices, oil and gas prices for American families. We've done that. We've done it. We brought it very low. This was just an excursion into something that had to be done. We're getting very close to finishing that too. In the meantime,
So that was the extent of kind of the main comments he said yesterday. I mean, we didn't learn anything that new other than what we have already known, other than you got this rhetoric from Trump. And this rhetoric was really based on this idea of trying to convince the markets that the war will end soon. And, he might be doing this with intent, because obviously Trump and the administration saw the oil prices spike yesterday, and they probably weren't happy about it. And even after the 20% decline from the midnight levels on Sunday, it was still at $100, which is just unsustainable on every level. So they know they have to get oil down, and maybe they're thinking if they just tell the market the war will be over soon, the market will start to price in that, we shouldn't be buying oil if oil will eventually come down, even if it's just buying themselves some time. And I think today, in 30 minutes when the market opens, it's going to really be a referendum on how much the market actually believes after 24 hours. Initially they buy the headline, but do they keep buying into the headline? Do they keep buying into strength? Or is it one of those things where they're like, yeah, this was kind of stupid to buy because this is not actually happening? Or, is this something that continues going further? And so far, I mean, pre-market futures show that the market's susceptible to being okay with the rhetoric of the war ending soon. We're barely down in the pre-markets, but once the market opens, we'll get a better understanding. I mean, the fact that Bitcoin's at 70.5 also tells you that risk on assets are definitely catching a bit of a bid. Gold and silver are up as well, which I think have kind of become pseudo risk on assets at this point, even though they're not supposed to be. Gold right there is up 1.81%. Silver is up 5.3%. The dollar is actually down. I think this is the only kind of risk off asset. So makes sense the dollar is going red while gold, silver, and Bitcoin go green. And then where is the 10-year, which unfortunately was at 4.2 yesterday? The 10-year is actually down 4.12. It's a decent pre-market setup. It's actually a decent pre-market setup. Now we just got to see when the market opens how everyone else will react. I'm more concerned about jobs and CPI. Yeah, I mean, the CPI numbers are also going to be really, really important tomorrow. But obviously, the jobs data that we got last week was not good. And, hopefully the CPI doesn't reflect some. I mean, I don't think the CPI is going to reflect inflation that is due to oil prices yet because it's last month's CPI. But the fear is that if we stay at $90, $95 a barrel of oil, much less 100, inflation is going to tick up. I mean, it's just inevitable. So I think the administration also understands that they've got to do something to resolve this right here. Update from Spain's foreign minister. Relations with the United States have been operating normally since Trump's threat to cut ties. They just put that out right now. Obviously, it's unlikely that the United States just ends all trade with Spain. I know Trump said that when he was sitting with the German chancellor, but it's not. I don't think overnight you can just unilaterally stop trade with another country. I mean, you could, but I don't think Trump wants to. But he did mention that he was not happy with Spain not giving up their base to the United States military. Wow, NVIDIA is making an investment. Oh, this is a weird one. I don't know if I like this one. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I like it. NVIDIA to invest in Thinking Machines Lab and supply AI chips. NVIDIA to make, quote, significant investment in Thinking Machines. For those that don't know Thinking Machines, it is Mira Murati's startup. She used to be the CTO of OpenAI. I think she raised $1 billion literally on a napkin by saying she had an idea. I'm going to be honest, gut reaction. You guys know how much of a fan I am of NVIDIA. I'm going to be honest. I don't like this. And I trust Jensen more than my gut reaction, but Jensen would have to have heard a hell of a pitch to make a significant investment in this. Why don't you like this? Because it sounds like they're investing in them for them to buy their chips. That's what it sounds like. And I'm okay if you're going to do that with OpenAI and Anthropic because they actually have a product. Thinking Machines Lab, they don't have anything. They have nothing. They're a lab that raised $1 billion. And she left OpenAI. I'm just like, okay, so you're going to be safer and better than OpenAI. All these people that are leaving OpenAI to start their own thing, I'm like, hold on, you're leaving OpenAI? Like, I get you might not like Sam Altman. There's only one person who's been able to do that successfully, and it's Anthropic with Dario. I don't know. This one's an interesting one. I can understand the investments in a lot of things NVIDIA has put money into. Thinking Machines, it's a little weird. So hopefully we get some more information on that. NVIDIA and Murati's Thinking Machines forge multi-year partnership. How much are they investing? We don't have the number yet. I really hope it's not more than $1 billion. I mean, look, obviously if Thinking Machines needs a ton of chips and they're going to become the next big foundation model company competing with Anthropic and OpenAI, then obviously that's good for NVIDIA. They should welcome that business. But like, are they investing in some bullshit? Because if they're investing in some bullshit, this is going to give the bears a lot of ammo to be like, Jensen's just trying to get purchase orders. If it was AMD, they would have. Okay, that's a stray that Mamba is. I didn't say this, okay? For all the AMD people, I know you got mad at me yesterday when I said AMD was red when it was actually green on the day. I'm still working on my apology letter to email to Lisa Su. But I'm not the one saying AMD would have given up an equity stake in the company. He's saying that, okay? Not me. He's saying that. But anyway, no, look, my gut reaction is I don't like it because I don't think Thinking Machines has a product. And it feels kind of weird for NVIDIA to invest in something with absolutely no product. But obviously, Jensen probably heard the pitch and there's a different understanding of it. Also, maybe this is going to force Mira Murati to explain what the hell her startup does, because we still have no freaking clue ever since she started a year ago. So maybe we'll get some more information. All right, we'll find out. Yeah, Thinking Machines gets 10% of NVIDIA. This guy is short. Trust me, I am not short NVIDIA. Is like one of the only names I've really been adding to significantly, which is why I'm looking at these things very deeply. But let's see. Maybe it's a couple $100 million. I would imagine it's a couple billion though. They're not going to make a quote unquote significant investment as per Bloomberg without it being in the billions. So we'll find out. We'll try to get some more details later. Speaking of raising money, Amazon, yes, is officially raising capital. They have started off their debt bond sale this week. And as a result, you're likely going to see Amazon have more capital coming in via debt. Again, they're financing this entire data center operation through this bond sale. Also, they have a mixed shelf offering for $50 billion that they can put onto the market at any time. So, that is one of the headwinds for Amazon, which is that they can dump shares immediately. And, that could raise them some money. Wow. Aramco CEO says they are preparing one of the refineries that got hit to resume output. That is good news. That's actually very good news. XLE is red on the day in the pre-market. So one of the refineries that got hit last week which was part of Saudi Aramco. Aramco CEO says we are now preparing that refinery to resume output. That is pretty quick. That was less than 5 days. They got this thing to get ready to pumping oil again. And looks like you're seeing a bit more momentum. All right, a couple other updates on the war, and then we'll get to some more of these AI headlines. We have a variety of different politicians kind of speaking out about this and making their argument about what exactly is going on. First of all, this was Hegseth this morning who had a joint conference on this. And here's what he had to say between Trump and Putin, which had a phone call last night. Trump claimed that the phone call went really well, and Putin might actually ironically help in stopping this war.
Secretary, there's been reports that the new leader of Iran has been wounded. Do you know if this is true and what his condition is? And then another one, President Trump said he had a really good call with President Putin yesterday. Will Russia be aiding us in this conflict? And can you share anything on that?
Well, the president, as I've said before, maintains strong relationships with world leaders, which creates opportunities and options for us in very dynamic ways. So the president said it was a good call. I was not on it, but those that were said it was a strong call, reaffirming hopefully the opportunity for some peace in Russia, Ukraine, and also a recognition that as it pertains to this conflict, they should not be involved. The first question was
on the new leader of Iran. There's reports that he's been wounded.
Oh, the new leader of Iran. He would be wise to.
Okay, so I think that is where either the video ended there or I'm not frozen, right? Okay, the screen is frozen. They got my internet, folks. The data centers once again are taking over New Jersey, and they are freezing my internet or freezing my screen, not my internet. Wow, they stopped Pete Hegseth right while he was talking. All right, so we'll give this a second. This should probably get off in a second. So what Hegseth was saying right there, which I also think was really important in regards to what's happening with Russia, is the irony of all of this is that Putin is now not only benefiting from the higher oil prices, which obviously allows him to finance the Ukraine war, but that Trump has been trying, and Trump, you could tell, was visibly upset about this yesterday.
To heed the words of our president, which is to not pursue nuclear weapons and come out and state as such. As far as his status, that's not something I can comment on right now.
Okay, cool. So there you go. That was the extent of the video. Again, the ironic thing about this is that we've been trying to stop the Russia-Ukraine war for 3 years. And, Trump has been negotiating for the past 2.5, and we haven't been able to do anything. And now Trump is saying that Putin actually might play a role in meaningfully helping the Iran war come to an end simply because Putin has a better relationship with Iran than the United States does. And, as a result, Hegseth is saying he can't exactly comment on what's happening. There was a report last week. The Washington Post said that Russian intelligence is actually helping Iran in terms of navigating this war. Trump refused to, comment on if that is actually happening or not. But it would be quite ironic if Russia came in and actually was the linchpin to kind of mediate some type of ceasefire or brokering of a deal, even after Iran's military has been wiped out, given that, Putin's stuck in a war right now that we have not also been able to resolve. Here's what Rand Paul has said about all this, as he is not the happiest that we have continued to enter into this war.
In our country further, I think we've gotten overextended. This is our second war in a month. And these wars are very, very expensive, not only in the lives that are lost, but also in treasure. And so, no, I'm very, very concerned about the debt. It's been my number one focus for some time now.
I know it has.
And $500 billion to the military budget is fiscally irresponsible.
Fiscally irresponsible in the face of China on the march, China undermining the United States at every turn, Russia continuing its assault on Ukraine, Iran, North Korea. So when you look at the world that we are faced with in terms of the reality that we're in, you still won't budge on increasing money for the military in this changing backdrop.
Well, to put it into perspective, we currently spend more on our military than the next 10 countries combined. So while there are threats we face around the world, and while we should combat and check China around the world, we spend, 4 times more than they do. But we spend more than the next 10 countries combined.
And, we've already spent $6 billion so far on this war. So, I mean, you're going to have elements of people in the party themselves, the Republican Party, saying that this is way too much spend. Obviously, the majority of them still agree with it. NVIDIA right here is down in the pre-market. Oracle getting a bid up about 1.2%. But the money is being spent, as Trump was kind of talking about yesterday, those $6 billion. And, it doesn't seem like it's going to be slowing down anytime soon, unless the war comes to an end, which, so far we just have no idea if that's actually happening. Reddit right there, that's up 1.4%. Meta's up 0.5% in the pre-market. Joby, which is now partnering to launch their air taxis in Washington, that's up 3.5%. CoreWeave's up 0.5%. Iren's up 1%. And then you got SanDisk also getting some love. A bunch of these names in the memory space after getting hit yesterday in an ugly way. I mean, these names were down like 7 to 8%. They're also catching a bid. HIMS is up 7.4%, as I don't think the squeeze has fully happened yet, folks. I know that 40% move yesterday was pretty strong, but if the short float is still anywhere near 30%, I mean, I think there is a shot for that squeeze to continue. So this one up 7% in the pre-market. If that one can sustain itself, maybe we get above that $25 level limit. The U.S. is about to hit $39 trillion in debt. Yeah, we talked about it last week. By 2045, the estimate is something like $67 trillion of debt. And I kind of think it's inevitable we're going to get there unless we stop the spend, but we're probably not going to stop spending. So, maybe that's your bull case for Mr. Bitcoin. But those are the main updates on the war. The TLDR is Trump says it's going to end soon. That's why oil tanked yesterday. That's why the market pumped yesterday. Will it actually end soon? I don't think anyone has a realistic idea. You've got refineries that are getting back to putting out output. You've got the Strait of Hormuz that is starting to open up a bit more. We've seen that from diagrams that we looked at yesterday. And so now I think the linchpin of all of this is going to be, hey, do we get a regime change or not? Or are we accepting the current regime? And if we're accepting the current regime, is it worth putting boots on the ground? Is it worth negotiating with this regime? Are we going to allow them to keep their internal leaders but still be able to have influence? I think all these questions hopefully will be answered soon, as Trump says. And if they're not answered soon, then I wonder if this market is going to fade any level of momentum that we got yesterday, going from 659 to 678 on the S&P. Or if we're actually going to be able to build on top of this strength. And hopefully in the next 20 minutes, we will find out. Palantir, they got an update this morning. Palantir is partnering with Polymarket. I actually think this is a really good partnership, and it makes a lot of sense. There is a ton of suspicious activity and basically not legal activity, even though Polymarket works in the crypto arena. So not, legality is a little bit of a gray area there. But essentially, Polymarket is tapping Palantir and TWG AI to help monitor its growing sports betting market. The firm will help flag suspicious activity and screen for banned participants as prediction markets face rising scrutiny around insider trading. I think that's a super cool use case. Obviously, if you're not a fan of the prediction markets, then you probably don't want them to get technology to help them become more legitimate and grow. That's a totally fair argument. But if they're going to be here to stay, and under this administration, again, we heard that announcement by the CFTC president 2 weeks ago where he, quite literally gave a middle finger to everyone who was saying that prediction markets are illegal. He was like, nope, they're here to stay, and we're going to make sure that they are regulated and governed correctly, which makes me think he has a ton of Kalshi stock. But the way he was talking about it just seems obvious that this administration, maybe if we get a different administration in 2028, things will change. But this admin is very, very supportive of prediction markets. And as a result, they're probably going to need the technology to survive. And that's where Palantir comes in. So you got Palantir with that partnership, which I also thought was a pretty good use case. Palantir right there is slightly flat in the pre-market. And then speaking of AI startup founders, we talked about NVIDIA investing in thinking machines, which I'm trying to get some more updates on details on the announcement, and hopefully we can get a little bit more analysis right here. Remember the head of AI at Meta, Yann LeCun, or LeCun? I don't know exactly how to say his last name. He is French. He's raised from French VCs $1 billion at a $4 billion valuation, $3.5 billion pre-money, to build world models. AMI Labs is the name of his company. He left Meta, and I believe he left Meta, right? I'm pretty sure he's not still at Meta. Yeah, he left Meta like a month ago, and he's building his own startup. Now, the interesting about this is that Alexander Wang, who essentially became his boss, which caused a lot of internal controversy inside of Meta, because Alexander Wang's like 29 years old and this guy's like 50, and he was probably annoyed about this. There was a lot of controversy yesterday that Alexander Wang is being demoted at Meta, and Zucks is, quote, fed up with him. The headline was Zuckerberg has finished with Alexander Wang, and he's just annoyed at how this guy has been operating inside the company. Don't know exactly why, but a lot of people did predict that this is very possible because, I mean, the guy's 29 years old. Zuck's bought 50% of his company with Scale AI. A lot of people didn't think of him as really a significant part of the overall AI ecosystem in terms of contributing thought leadership to, innovative and new ideas around AI. They just saw him as a dude who had an AI company, which was data labeling, which is, not the most impressive thing. Obviously, it's impressive building a $30 billion company, but in the world of AI, it's not like Ilya from OpenAI or anything like that. And so, now you got a lot of people thinking that Meta's entire AI ambition is starting to be a little in flux. At its core, the reason I continue to hold on to Meta is that they are guiding for 33% top line growth. And although they're spending a lot of CapEx to be able to get that top line growth, it is working. And as long as it continues to work, Meta on a forward earnings basis continues to be cheap. It's just their entire AI initiative outside of advertising. Once again, and I've been saying this for the past couple of months, I don't know what they're doing besides ads. And I think you got to give them some time to figure it out. And I think the street is so impressed with the numbers that they didn't even care on the earnings call that, Meta doesn't have that flashy new big thing that they're doing with AI because the ads business is going so well. But, if Meta can figure that out, maybe that helps and continues to give momentum. Okay, thinking machines. We're getting some updates on this. Wow. 50 billion valuation. 50 billion valuation. That's not confirmed, but that's what Bloomberg's saying. That would quadruple the startup's valuation from July when it raised $2 billion at a $12 billion valuation. Oh, no, Marathi put out a statement. This partnership accelerates our capacity to build AI that people can shape and make their own as it shapes human potential in turn. Let me see if I can get her full statement right here. So she has officially acknowledged this is real, this partnership with NVIDIA. Yeah, here it is. Okay, here's 50 billion with no product, folks. That's Mira Marathi, for those that have never seen her. Thinking Machine and NVIDIA announced today a multi-year strategic partnership to deploy at least 1 gigawatt of next-generation NVIDIA Vera Rubin systems to support the frontier model training and platforms. Jensen said, AI is the most powerful knowledge discovery in human history. Thinking Machines has brought together a world-class team to advance the frontier of AI. We are thrilled to partner with them. Okay, I love Jensen, but what is this? Like, what is this? Thinking Machines has brought together a world-class team. That's why you're partnering with them? They have a good team. I'm trying to be objective here. What exactly does that mean? That sounds like a lot of BS. I'm just going to be honest. Mira says, NVIDIA's technology is the foundation on which the entire field is built. This partnership accelerates our capacity to build AI that people can shape and make their own as it shapes human potential in turn. Yeah, this is the most fluff PR nonsense around AI. Frontier AI, building powerful AI systems that are customizable, requires infrastructure at scale. You're not being objective. You're dismissing it out of hand. Okay, well, tell me, what did NVIDIA invest in? Can anyone tell me what NVIDIA invested in without using buzzwords? Because, I mean, if you tell me NVIDIA invested in OpenAI, I'm like, oh, I can tell you what they invested in. Anthropic, oh, I understand what they... Coherent, oh, I get it. CoreWeave, I get it. Intel, I get it. Thinking Machines. So what did they invest in? I'm sorry, but I feel like you got to be a little objective here. Like, what was the point of this? 50 billion on the valuation? Forget profit. There's not even revenue. Forget revenue. There's not even a product. At that point, they think Mira Marathi is worth $50 billion, which maybe she is. But I have to be a bit skeptical of that as someone who's trying to be more objective about my own investments, because it's like, okay, if you're telling me this chick's worth 50 billion, I mean, then she's got to have something up her sleeve in this AI world that that Anthropic doesn't have, that OpenAI doesn't have. I mean, OpenAI is worth 800 billion, and look at how much revenue they do, how much growth they have. Anthropic's worth 380 billion. I mean, she's worth more than 10% of Anthropic with zero revenue, zero profits, and zero users. Unless there's a lot more that I don't know about behind the scenes. But that press release definitely doesn't give the public any information about that, which means at that point we are left with only the words of that press release, which is AI is customizable and needs infrastructure at scale. It's like, okay, that's just bullshit. Like, we know it's bullshit. So I don't know, guys. I don't know. That's actually, it's not a red flag. Even if NVIDIA invests $5 billion and loses all $5 billion, nothing's going to happen to NVIDIA, right? Like, they're just too big of a company. They have so much cash, they have to put it around. But Jensen must be thinking they're going to buy a lot of chips, which is why it's strategic for him to do it. I just also wonder, if they're buying all those chips and there's no real reason for it because they don't have anything to show for it, then it doesn't even matter. But theoretically, Jensen might just be, building out purchase orders, which is what he needs to continue going further. Again, the name of the company is Thinking Labs. Thinking Labs. And speaking of all these foundation model companies, we do have a lot more drama in regards to going out with Anthropic. The officially classified them as a supply chain risk. That has happened yesterday, which means Anthropic now is essentially being weeded out of the government. And quite frankly, I do not think this is good for Anthropic. I mean, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars, not even from the US government, but from all of these other companies that potentially don't want to work with Anthropic because of them being designated as a supply chain risk, like a Boeing, who might be using them in airplane manufacturing, but Boeing is also a defense contractor. And so, there's elements where Boeing might just want to cut ties with them. Now, again, Anthropic is suing back. They filed a suit today against the Department of War, alleging its designation as a supply chain risk violates the company's First Amendment rights and exceeds government's authority. But obviously, we are going to see if this Anthropic saga actually plays out to be effective. Here's what Ted Cruz had to say about this entire situation this morning around Anthropic.
All of the government from doing business with Anthropic, which of course runs the Claude large language model. I'm curious what your reaction to that is, and whether you think the Department of War should no longer be using Anthropic, and whether you think the entire government should not be using Anthropic.
Andrew, I'll confess, I have not seen a basis laid out for why the government would be prohibited from using Anthropic. Claude is one of the many AI tools that are helpful. Secretary Hegseth laid out his reasoning that Anthropic was trying to control and limit how the Department of War would employ an AI, and he rightly said that the military is not going to allow a private sector country to set military and defense policy for America. I think that's reasonable on the face of it. I haven't seen a broader basis for a government-wide prohibition, so I don't. Without more information, I don't have a view one way or the other.
I think part of the question is just whether this has become effectively political or not, in part because it appears now that the deal that's been reached between the Pentagon and OpenAI is actually quite similar to the deal that Anthropic effectively was putting forth, meaning OpenAI is providing its model, but with with guardrails on it.
Look, my view on AI, as you know, I chair the Senate Commerce Committee, and I think we are in the middle of a race for AI with China. And I think it is the most important economic challenge of this next century, that we need to win the race for AI. Whichever country wins the race for AI is going to dominate AI. We are going to see millions of jobs that are going to be created through dominating AI. And we're also going to see the country that wins, the values of that country suffusing AI. And so I don't want the values of communist China dictating AI. I want America to. I recognize the question you're asking. Look, between the two companies, I don't have a dog in that fight.
Look, I think Anthropic really fumbled the bag here. I think they really fumbled the bag, and now they're using this whole PR strategy of mass surveillance and autonomous weapons to kind of cover up for how bad they fumbled the bag. But I feel like they could have resolved this without having to go so crazy about like every little thing the Department of War was doing. And, you know, there's no company in China that's an AI company that's telling the government how to act and what to do. Now, obviously, they have a different system in China, but nonetheless, as an American AI company, if you're so worried about the Chinese, then you're definitely going to have to work with the government. And there just had to be a better way, I think, to handle this. So if Anthropic does get phased out, OpenAI takes a lot of that business. And, you know, I wonder what that means for Anthropic's actual revenue if this ends up playing out. Now, again, for the people that think they did the right thing, maybe they did. Time will tell. The question is, how are they going to make back that revenue? Do they get it from the enterprise? Do they get it from consumers? Because look, consumers don't pay for AI. Like, some of them will. But even though Anthropic's getting 1 million users a day, it's #1 on the App Store, a lot of those people are never going to pay for Anthropic. So they're never going to monetize them. And Anthropic is apparently anti-ads. They did a bunch of ads in the Super Bowl to criticize OpenAI for running ads inside of their chatbot. So they're never going to monetize individual people. They're always going to have to do it via organizations. and they kind of just missed out on the largest organization in the world, which is the US government. So Tanner pays for like 3 of them. I pay for 3 of them as well. But like, we're kind of deeper into AI. We care about AI. We like using a bunch of these things. The average person, they just download ChatGPT, they ask it questions, and maybe over time they'll pay the $20 a month. And that's a big if, A lot of people at the end of the day are just going to use them in their own way. A couple other headlines. Israel just said Iran is firing cluster bombs at Israeli civilians. That came out 5 minutes ago. And then the United Kingdom says they took out a drone in Iraqi airspace overnight. The UK says the drone was headed towards coalition forces. So the UK now getting a little involved, even though they said they did not want to get involved in this entire war. Looks like they are. This was about 7 minutes ago. They took out a drone in Iraqi airspace overnight, and the UK says the drone was heading towards different coalition forces. All right, so you're seeing a lot more people get involved in this. And yes, the valuation on this Bloomberg article for Thinking Machines is $50 billion. And there you go. That's what Jensen invested in. And look, there might be other financials that we don't know about. I mean, obviously they haven't publicly listed their revenue growth. So, maybe there is a product that they're testing internally that they're working with other companies for and that they're providing. It's just in this press release. If you just saw this press release, Jensen in previous press releases talks about OpenAI is building the blah, 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 blah. And he goes off into this like paragraph of words to explain what they're investing in. In this case, the extent of what he said is that Thinking Machines has brought together a world-class team to advance the frontier of AI. If that's all I'm getting from the press release, I really don't know what that means. And so you're going to have to trust, all of us who are invested in NVIDIA, all of us who are invested in the AI ecosystem are going to have to trust that Jensen thinks there's something special here. And that's ultimately why they're making this investment. So that is what you got. All right, we got 2 minutes until the market opens. Today, the number one thing is going to be, can we continue the momentum that we had from yesterday? Again, yesterday, the market did say that we like that Trump says the war is going to end soon. And that is part of the reason we went green. If you take a look at the ETF inflows yesterday, $12 billion on a really ugly day across SPY, QQQ, small caps, semis, etc. So you did have the broader amount of capital in the ETF ecosystem come into ETFs towards the end of the day, which was quite incredible given how ugly of a day it was. Down 2% of the day. Usually you see outflows. We had net inflows. So can we keep oil down? Can this idea of the war ending soon continue to keep the markets up? Do we once again go into the choppy element of, we had a great green day and now we're going to have an ugly red day and it just kind of stays within the range? Or do we make a trend? I think those are the big questions today to answer. And hopefully we can get some broader answers to those questions. By the way, Morgan Stanley upgraded CrowdStrike to 510. So CrowdStrike, some of these cybersecurity names might get a bid. A lot of them got upgraded today as the market continues to think that they won't be fully commoditized by AI. All right, here we go. Tuesday, March 10th, 9:30 a.m. Thank you all for being here. The stock market, once again, is open. All right, wake your asses up. Let's get into it. S&P looks like she's going to flip green right here. Down 0.03%. It looks like she's going for that green 678. If we can get above 680, that would be incredible. We are green. NVIDIA goes green as well. 183. That is nice. Oracle going green. They have earnings today after the bell. We'll talk more about Oracle. Reddit up 2.28%. That goes green. Meta 655. That's up 1.3. That goes green. Joby 3%. They had a good press release yesterday about working with air taxis and officially getting them started in the United States. That's why that one's getting some bids. Intel's up 1%. CoreWeave goes red. Interesting. You would think CoreWeave had enough pain over the past couple of days, but it's still continuing to get hit. HIMS is up 15%, and she is going green. Going green. I think that's the squeeze happening right in front of us, folks. 17% on the day. Let's see if it can hold. 17% is a hell of a candle. 11 million shares of volume within the first minute of HIMS opening up for the markets, you're seeing some of that momentum right there. Amazon also going green, 214. NVIDIA just went red again. S&P also just slightly went red. Bitcoin trying to hit 71, but HIM's right there, 14% on the day, as you might have some shorts starting to cover based on that new deal with Novo, which got a bit of interest and officially ended the kind of conflict that Novo had with HIMs. Pinterest, that's up 1%. AMD, that's up 0.5%. AMD is green. It is green, not red. Advanced Micro Devices is green on there, just making sure everyone knows AMD is green. Bloom Energy, that's green. Robinhood, just below $80. That is also slightly green. Apple, that goes slightly red. Oklo, $62. Where is Micron? That should be closer to 400. Micron, there you go, breaking above 400. Once again, I mean, these names, back and forth, back and forth. Micron was pushing 350 yesterday. Now it's at 400. You got to have the stomach to hold these names, but they once again continue to be incredibly volatile. South Korea also almost going green on the day. That was slightly red. Cypher is green. Galaxy Digital is green. Ondas is green. Also, we're going to have the Red Cat CEO on the show today at around 10:45 in about an hour. Our boy Jeff, he will be on the show. He's been on the show a couple times before. So we will have the Red Cat CEO on in about an hour. And I would love to get his thoughts as someone who runs a drone company on kind of what has been happening with this war and the demand for drones. S&P 500 right there, 678.50. That is green. The VIX is back at 24. The VIX fell 15% yesterday after Trump officially said that he thinks the war is going to end soon. We did have a VIX 30 moment yesterday, which ended up being an extreme fear. It ended up being an amazing buy the dip, even if you just bought the S&P, because we reversed throughout the end of the day. So VIX 30, once again, historically has been a buy the dip, and yesterday it continued to be a buy the dip. S&P now going slightly red. VIX is actually down 5% on the day. VIX is down on the day. Do you own Red Cat? I do not. I do not own Red Cat. I did beat the CEO back at AIPCon for Palantir like a year and a half ago, and so we've always kept in touch since then, and he's been a good friend of the show. But I do not own the stock. It is down 3.5%. I think it's up like 90% for the year, so it has been one of the main beneficiaries since everything has broken up. Sorry, it's up 48% for the year. So still has had a pretty strong year. Bitcoin right there, 70.5. Reddit, that one goes red. Wow, Reddit, 142 to 138. So Reddit is one of those names that's getting a lot more attention. Again, I did a deep dive on them when they were at 230. I didn't like the valuation. The valuation is a lot more compelling now. But I'll say what I said yesterday. You got to compare it against Meta. I do think there's a bull case for Reddit outside of, being held up against Meta. But Meta's growth is pretty damn impressive, and they're both in the same space, which is advertising. So what does Reddit offer to the table that's so much better than Meta when it comes to the ads? And people will speak to the growth, but that 70% growth is not happening every single quarter. I think for Q1 they're projecting 51%, so it is deaccelerating, even though 51% is still pretty good. Meta presents a really compelling opportunity at a, quite frankly, better valuation than Reddit, but Reddit's more high beta, so when it runs, it obviously can run at a higher level. CoreWeave just went green. HIMS was up 17. Now it's up 12. So it's trying to hold on to that momentum. Still at 25. Did touch 2603. But HIMS is green. Wow. Meta just acquired Moltbook, a viral social network designed for AI agents as per Axios. The deal is expected to close in mid-March. Do you guys remember Moltbook? We talked about it. It's like Facebook for agents. And basically the agents would just like talk. It's more like Reddit for agents, to be honest. There were like these threads that agents would interact with, and it was kind of freaky what they were saying, because they were talking about killing humans and stuff. But wow, Meta basically acquiring a new social network, but for agents, is actually really interesting. Bitcoin right there at 70.2. Where is SoFi? SoFi 1884. A little green on SoFi. Getting a little bit of green for SoFi. Snowflake is red. CRM is red. That's down 2%. ServiceNow is red. That's down 3%. Is Microsoft red? Microsoft goes red. It looks like software is dumping at the exact same time. Palantir is red, but not as red as the others. IGV has to be down at least 1%. IGV is officially down 1%. Are they taking Shopify with it down? They're taking Shopify down with it. CrowdStrike's green, but it just got a red candle. Why did software all dump right then and there? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Cloudflare barely up. Twilio barely up. Atlassian, Salesforce, Oracle just went red. It was at 153. Snowflake, Confluent, Datadog. I wonder if Anthropic put out a new press release or something. Hopefully we're done with Anthropic being like the linchpin of if software gets to survive. Open Doors up 2%. SoFi about to lose a lot of its green. S&P again is still red. Disney goes red. ARK goes red. Meta holding on out of big tech. What about Google? Google was below like almost 290 yesterday, then a rebound to 305. So Google had a hell of a rebound yesterday. Google 307. All right, so Google and Meta holding up with their momentum. Tesla, do we go green? Tesla is green, 400. On the Tessies, Adobe also goes red. These are all 2% candles across the board on IGV and software names. Palantir officially going down 1%. Microsoft getting ready to go down 1%. Salesforce getting smacked right here. Same thing with ServiceNow. Wow, you're just not seeing any easy momentum on these software names after a couple of days. SoFi officially goes red again. Red Cat, that's down 3%. Micron right there, up 3.6. Or is Bitcoin going red? Oh my gosh. That's a $700 candle. Sorry, $820 candle from 9:30 to 9:37. $800 in 7 minutes. That's more than $100 per minute. Gone from BTC. Elon just tweeted, X Money early public access will launch next month. A lot of people have been asking, is this a threat to Robinhood or SoFi or any of those fintechs? I don't really think so. I mean, I think X Money is a really cool initiative. And I think, if you're on X all day, you're probably going to try it out and transact, and you'll be able to, tip creators with your X Money and maybe pay for certain stuff. But I think in terms of an integrated financial network, some of the things that Robinhood, SoFi is building is it has to do a bit more with your brokerage and your bank. And now maybe Elon's going to bring all that stuff eventually over time. And it's good. More competition is a good thing for consumers, but I don't really see it as like the biggest threat in the world right now. Meta 655, that's up 1.2% as well. They are giving you a 6% APY on uninvested cash, but I heard there's two caveats. Number one, they're going to get rid of that promotion after a couple months because that's unsustainable. And then number two, it's up to 10,000. So, you can't put $1 million into X and get 6% on that for doing nothing. Apparently it's capped at 10,000, which makes sense. I mean, there's 6% is just to get people to deposit some money, and eventually they're going to take that away. Now, if they keep 6% forever, economically, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they would get a lot of deposits because, 6% is magnitudes above what any other bank or fintech can pay you on uninvested cash. NVIDIA right there, 182.50, S&P 677, Bitcoin loses 70,000. Bitcoin loses 70,000. Broadcom demolished earnings. They definitely deserve to be here. I don't know if this thing gets back to that $400 range that quickly. I think they're going to need another quarter of execution to get there, but they were at 295 on February 5th. They were at 315 last week. So this 350 level definitely feels well-deserved. Again, Broadcom is not the most, undervalued company out there, but they definitely put up the numbers that deserved somewhat of a premium. HIMS right there now up 11% on the day. Again, Vertiv got into the S&P. That's why that stock was up 5% yesterday. Now it's up 1.3%. Richard, thanks for the super chat. When is SoFi going back to 25, or where do you see SoFi by the end of the year? It's a really hard question, and the only answer I can really give right here is that I think SoFi is being plagued by what's happening in private credit, even though SoFi doesn't necessarily, from my understanding, have a lot of exposure to private credit. But because they have partners that do have exposure, like Blue Owl, and the general sentiment around loans, given credit card delinquency rates, auto delinquencies, student loan delinquencies, again, SoFi is not as exposed to the worst of those delinquencies, but the perception is the best answer I can give for why the market continues to take this down, because the growth is, not a reason for why the stock should be trading at these levels. So, yeah, I think by the end of the year, I would hope it's at least 25, but it's kind of hard to put a time frame on that right now. NVIDIA back to 183. That goes green. Palantir getting dumped. Software all across. Look at Adobe losing $8, 285 to 274. ServiceNow down 4%. Microsoft down 1%. Salesforce down 4%. Snowflake down 3%. Once again, there's a software sell-off. And where is that money rotating to? It's not really the semis. I mean, maybe because SMH is green, but you're not seeing the major set. Let's check the semis watch list. Yeah, it's 50-50. Some of them are green, but a lot of them are still red. So I don't know if you could say it's rotating to semis necessarily. Oscar's getting dumped. Shout out to Neil. He did interview the Oscar CEO, and that was awesome. But Oscar, getting hit. I think, again, the subsidies and the ability for those subsidies to be extended for ACA is still, once again, the biggest question around Oscar, even though it shouldn't be, because there's a lot of parts of the business outside of those subsidies. But I think that's the overhang on the stock. That's down 5% on the day. Intuit is also down 4%. Another software name getting hit. Bit confused why software is getting this momentum to the downside right now. It's weird. Very, very weird. Broadcom right here, still 348. I can't see a single headline on software. It's almost like the algos just decided, all right, we gave software a bid yesterday, and today we're taking it back. I mean, freaking ServiceNow was almost $125 yesterday. It's now $116, which is not the craziest dip. It's just like annoying, right? Because it's like it's not able to hold on to any of the gains right here. Robinhood, that one losing some steam, now below 79. Healthcare is getting dumped. Is it? UNH is red. Molina, which got kicked out of the S&P, is also red. That's down 5%. How about CNC? That's down 10%. Why the hell is that down 10%? Elevance is up a little bit, but you got a red candle. So healthcare and software getting dumped. Oh, yes, I forgot to talk about this. Thank you, Leslie Clark 7164. I forgot to mention this today. That's probably your reason for why software is selling off. So NVIDIA came out with a press release this morning, and essentially they came out with their own version of OpenClaw. NVIDIA is planning to launch an open source AI agent platform. Ahead of its annual developer conference, that is going to be next week, NVIDIA is readying a new approach to software that embraces AI agents similar to OpenClaw. Now, I read this article this morning. In this article, it explicitly says NVIDIA is already in talks with companies like Salesforce, ServiceNow, etc., to partner on this new initiative. Because if they don't, I think Salesforce, ServiceNow are going to hate Jensen for the rest of their lives, so that they kind of have to have some partnership. But the headline is that NVIDIA is getting into software. The headline is that NVIDIA is getting into software if they are launching their own open source agentic platform. And it makes sense because what did Jensen say on the call 2 weeks ago on the earnings? He said compute is equivalent to revenue, and to get revenue, you need token generation. So the more tokens, the more revenue, the more compute, which means compute will equal eventually more revenue. But the ability to get that revenue is going to be through these agents doing trillions and trillions of tokens every month of output generation. And if NVIDIA is so confident about that, obviously they're selling the compute, they're selling the hardware. Why wouldn't they also get into the software game? Like, it just makes sense for them to also say, hey, if we're selling, Microsoft a ton of chips, then maybe we can upsell Microsoft on this agentic open source agent platform that they can then distribute among their hundreds of thousands of enterprise customers. I mean, it definitely makes sense to attempt to do that. Also, it would be probably, decent margins if they go for that. It would continue to build NVIDIA's moat. But I think the market is thinking, okay, well, if they do that, vibe coding a CRM via NVIDIA's OpenClaw competitor agents would be easier than just buying Salesforce's CRM software. I mean, that might be the logic. And that's why Salesforce is getting sold off. Bitcoin as well, 69,860. So, I mean, this kind of is, again, I don't want to say it's bearish for software, but the headline itself will definitely get people thinking, well, okay, if NVIDIA is going to go after some of these software names, not just Anthropic, then yeah, there might be an issue. But I think Jensen at GTC is going to make a big attempt to explain that we're going to partner with all these companies, and the partnerships are going to create the opportunities for all of us to sell more software into the enterprise. USO, the oil fund, that's up 1.9% on the day. WTI crude is above $90. Is it? No, it's at 88. It was at 90 in the pre-market. Now it's at 88. So that one continued to go red. VG getting dumped today again after Trump said that the war is ending soon. I mean, these oil and gas names, natural gas, they really have been moving just based on these headlines. And so as oil and natural gas prices have come down, VG, Next Decade, Exxon, Chevron, XLE, all of that has been coming down. Zeta's down 3%. Apollo down another 2%. Private credit still getting hit. Rivian is up 7% on the day. There should be a headline on Rivian. We'll see what we have here, but Rivian's going green. Is there a headline? I don't see one. But the market's liking it. Yeah, I don't see a headline. It might just be... no, here's the headline. Rivian is licensing their chip to other OEMs. Rivian is licensing to third-party OEMs their RAP1 silicon chip. I mean, they did announce in December that they were becoming more of a chip company, so it makes sense that they're getting some demand for that from other OEMs. Palantir now at 155, SoFi at 1869, so that's why Rivian seeing some momentum, up 8%. Yes, they also did get an analyst upgrade. That's correct. They also did get an analyst upgrade. NEO, that stock is up 9.9%. They did have earnings today, right? NEO was my first love. This is one of the first stocks I ever bought. Ironically, at $3. And now it's at $5, 6 years later. NEO got their first ever profit, $40 million of net income. Q4 revenue, $4.8 billion versus $4.6 billion. And they're going to be guiding deliveries of 83,000 vehicles. Okay. They're profitable. For the first time ever in NEO's history, they are profitable. NEO, again, got to $60 back in 2021. So obviously it's taken a pretty ugly haircut. It was seen as like the Tesla of China, which it still kind of is seen as of today, but BYD gets a bit more attention. NEO right there, up 10% of the day. Micron, that's up 4.5% as well. On the day, TD Cowen upgraded Rivian to 20. Also, Bank of America, which has hated HIMs forever, upgraded them to $24 today from $12.50. I mean, so this Novo thing was a big deal for Bank of America, which has been the biggest bear on HIMs, to come out and say, we still think you should sell the stock, but we have to upgrade the price. I feel is a bit of capitulation from one of the biggest bears, which is ultimately, I think, bullish for HIMs. NVIDIA right there, actually getting a breakout, 183.50. 183.50. That's getting the high of the day right there. Let's see if we can break above 184. Meta still green, 655. Reddit goes red. This one's not able to hold on to its momentum. Bitcoin recaptures 70. Copper's up on the day, 1%. Oklo's up on the day. Moody's and S&P Global, those same credit rating agencies that went red yesterday, continue to go red as those are continuing to get hit. Japanese industry minister said, we discussed the energy situation and possible oil reserves released with G7 energy ministers on Tuesday. Again, the United States and other G7 companies or countries might end up releasing a decent chunk of oil, which would further, from their SPRs, which would further create pressure on oil prices, which would be, a good thing for everybody else. Grab right there, trying to go green at 396. VG, again, 3.8% down. KKR down 2%. BlackRock actually flipping green on the day as well. Nubank is also red. Nubank is also red. AAOI, this photonics play we talked about for the past couple of days, this one continuing to get the bid. Is Light also getting the bid? Lumentum is up 11%. Wow. Coherent is up 6%. All right, so all the photonics plays continuing to get some excitement here today. Most of these were actually down 5% yesterday, so you're seeing a massive reversal from those bottoms. I mean, Light was at like 580, back to 712. They also did get into the S&P, which was a big headline last Friday. And that's getting some more momentum. UMAC, that's up 14% as well. This one was getting a little bit of a bid yesterday. That one's continuing to get some momentum here. They had earnings, record revenue growth, and strong margin expansion as per their earnings yesterday as well. Wait, is this the company? No, this is not the company. So there's a new drone company that Eric and Donald Trump Jr. are backing, essentially to like build more drones. And obviously we can tell that there's going to be a lot more demand for drones based on everything going on. UMAC is not that company, but it is in that bucket. SanDisk, is that also green? SanDisk goes green, 3%. SanDisk goes green, 3%. That is up. Yeah, they also make drones. Donald Jr. is on the board of UMAC as well. That is correct. What about Pew Pew? What happened to Pew Pew? Do we remember that? Grab a gun. Okay, that's down 1.7%. How much is this down all time? This was also another SPAC that they had. It is down 78% since it went public. Some of them you win, some of them you don't. Tim's right there. That is up 10% as well. Neo, that's up 9%. Micron, that's up 4%. S&P's basically been flat on the day. Not really moving. 677, which honestly is the best thing. It would be nice for the S&P to just hold steady and not really, I mean, the best thing would be to go a lot greener and build on the strength, but not going red would be nice. We have one of our representatives in Congress, Gil Cisneros. He's on the Armed Service Committee. He just bought a ton of stuff and sold a ton of stuff. So he sold Microsoft, he sold GE, he sold UNH, he bought Micron, AMD, Baba, TSM, and ExxonMobil, and Chevron. This guy is definitely a retail investor. He's selling software and healthcare, and he's buying oil and gas and tech. I love it. Here's the guy. He sold 50,000 of Microsoft, 50,000 of UNH, bought 250,000 of TSM, 100,000 of Exxon, 100,000 of Baba, and then AMD, Chevron, Micron, and EOG. So that's what you've got there. Iran back to 40. I think a lot of people are getting upset about their dilution, and I agree with Sam. He was on the show yesterday. I mean, these companies are going to dilute. I don't know if that's a bear case for them. Obviously, in the short term, it can create headwinds because, if they're dumping $6 billion worth of stock, then it's going to be pressure. It's going to create pressure for the stock to move up. And, maybe Iran, if it gets up to 42, 43 today, they're going to continue to use that $6 billion that they filed for. But they're building out heavy data centers and they need money to do this. So if you're investing in these companies like Nebius, Iran, Cypher, CoreWeave, you're going to get hit with dilution. It's inevitable. And so I don't know if it's necessarily a super bear case, but it is obviously headwind for the stock price itself to get a bit higher. Nebius right there, 3% up on the day, 97. Planet Labs is green. Dan Ives put out a list this morning of the top 10 stocks he thinks people should really take advantage of on these dips. And the 10 are CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Microsoft, Palantir, Planet Labs, Apple, Voyager, VOYG, Voyager Space, which had earnings yesterday, I believe, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and then CHKP, which I actually don't know too much about. Checkpoint Software. I've heard of this name, but I don't know a ton about them. That stock also has been hit in the software sell-off, and that's down 2.3% as well. Tesla 406 getting a bit more momentum, up 1.9%. Tesla was not on the list. NVIDIA was also not on the list. So I think Dan is trying to kind of go into some different elements of the market, but a lot of it was cybersecurity, software, Apple, space, and primarily the software names that have been sold off. Microsoft as well, still getting hit. Oh, that's also cybersecurity. Checkpoint. All right, so Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and CrowdStrike are the three, along with Zscaler. He likes that one. Three names he's thinking are sold off right here. Microsoft 405, that one's still down 1. IGV still getting hit. You're not really seeing a rebound there. Yeah, I'm seeing zero bounce on IGV. It's basically at the low of the day right here at 85.99, which means Salesforce and ServiceNow also not really getting any love. Salesforce down 3%. What is the case for those smaller players over Google and Amazon? It feels like it's just way more risk. Is there real potential for outsized returns? It's a really good question, and I think there are two types of investors so far in 2026. The first type is looking for those really small companies that can give you outsized gains with, no real guarantee if you're going to get the gain, but it's a bit more risky. And then there's a lot of investors this year, the second type, that are just piling into the easiest names to buy, like a Microsoft, even if they're flat, knowing that you're paying a good price. Theoretically, obviously, if a recession happens or the earnings picture changes, then it's different. But Microsoft's not going to move as much as a Red Cat or as much as an Ondas, but you're paying 20 times forward earnings. You're not paying an expensive price. Same thing with NVIDIA, Meta, Amazon, etc. So I think those are two different subsectors of the retail investor this year. Some people that are, buying IGV and these software names because they think they're getting a good price, even if it's not guaranteed that the whole software thing is not going to be catastrophic. And then you've got other investors that are like, dude, Amazon's cheap. And I don't care how boring it is, I'm going to buy Amazon, which I think it can become a little bit less boring by running covered calls and at least being able to yield some of the volatility off of it. But yeah, I agree. Some of those names, they're not guaranteed to give you these massive outside returns. Rivian right there, that's up 8.6%. SoFi now below 1850. This one continues every day to kind of be stuck in this range. Baba is also green, up 2%. Up 2%. When will we be back in the bull market? It's so funny, right? Because it's like we're definitely not in a bear market right now. I know some stocks feel like they're in a bear market, but the technical definition of a bear is 20% down on the S&P. We have not seen that. We're down 2% for the year. So we are not in a bear market. Obviously, it doesn't feel like a massive, massive bull market compared to the 6 months of green we had in 2025. Every single day we were going up. But I also think that's what happens when you're in year 4 of the stock market giving you these back-to-back 20% returns. Things get a little choppy and things have to ultimately consolidate, which is what we're seeing right here. Micron, that's up 4%. I don't know why Orbs is getting hit. Orbs is down 21%. Again, as much as I love Dan Ives, I'm going to be honest on this. I never understood Orbs ever. And I know there's the Sam Altman connection and WorldCoin and you need identification. I get it. But I also didn't know why it had to turn into a cryptocurrency. Someone's dumping it today, though. 21% down as this one gets absolutely wrecked on the day. Yeah, there's got to be some headline that's either taking that down or some investor that's selling out of it. S&P 500 right there, that's 675. Where is Ethereum? Ethereum still above 2,000. BTC still just below 70. We didn't get 20% last year. That's fair. I think we got like 18%. So it was just below 20. The point is, if 8 to 10 is your average return, even if you're getting 15, 16%, you're doubling, which is pretty bullish. So for us to get 20% this year, which I don't think any analyst has that in their mind, but to get 20% from the levels we started at this year, we would need 8,100, which is not impossible, but as of now, it just looks improbable, given we can, barely hold above 7,000. Could BM&R be selling Orbs? I don't think so. If they would, they'd be selling for a loss, I feel like, because I think they got their shares even above the current price it's at right now. I think we had a press release yesterday. BM&R bought another 60,000 ETH over the last week. But I don't think they would be selling Orbs this quickly. That is ugly though. 20% down. I don't know what the hell is happening. Again, I just never I get there's going to be a need for identity and security in the future, but I don't know if it has to be a cryptocurrency. And whenever you turn it into a crypto, you just get a lot more manipulation that's involved in the coin itself, and then obviously the digital asset treasury connected to the coin. HIMS right there, that's still up 12%. White House will be hosting a press briefing at 2 p.m. Eastern today. Okay, so you got the White House once again going live today. Trump did 2 live streams yesterday back to back, which was kind of crazy, but they are continuing to try to communicate this message about the Iran war. Where is Rocket Lab? Are we green? We are basically flat. Again, Rocket Lab, just like NVIDIA, it has been the perfect candidate for these covered calls. Same thing with ASTS. You're going to have to deal with a little bit of volatility, but realistically, it's stuck within a $5 to $10 range. Like, my logic on this is just so simple. If the market's going to be like this for the next few months, and then it's going to decide if it goes super up or super down, right? I think at some point it's going to break and it's going to get out of this consolidation, and hopefully it's to the upside. But if it's going to be stuck, like, unless you know how to trade and buy low, sell high within the day or within the week, which is a skill, and not everyone is the best at that. I'm certainly not the best at that. Then being able to arbitrarily sell shares at a certain price and get paid premium if it gets there, if it doesn't get there, I don't think is the worst idea. Unless we break out and go super bullish, which, like, maybe we do. It's just there's a lot of shit going around in this environment that might not immediately cause that breakout. Again, the taco that happened in April last year is not as easy to happen this year. And if we break down, at least you're collecting some premium on the way down. If we do actually end up having a big breakdown. It's just, again, for us to have a 10, 20% haircut, that obviously could happen, but these multiples would have to get really stupid. They're already kind of stupid. NVIDIA at 18 times forward is stupid. Is NVIDIA going to 10 times forward? I mean, maybe. But I think the low multiples that we are seeing already validates that maybe going that much lower, although possible, is not as probable. But maybe going up is also not as probable, which means we're stuck in the middle. And that's where you try to yield some of the volatility, being in the middle. Where's BM&R? BM&R is $20, down a third of a percent. Yeah, I mean, covered calls on BM&R have been incredible as well, as this one has been stuck also within that range. Palantir, 152. She's dumping now, 2.7%. We are at least holding the 150. I mean, even if we hold the 140s, I'll be happy because this thing was almost below 120 3 weeks ago. So we were able to at least reverse from there. And if we can kind of stabilize, that'd be nice. Do we have existing home sales today? We do have existing home sales today. Let me pull that up. Let's see how the market's reacting to some of these housing numbers. Okay, let's see what we have here.
In February, rose 1.7% from January to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate of 4.09 million units. That is a beat. The street was looking for a slight decline. Now, sales were down 1.4% from a year ago. This count represents closed sales, so deals from December and January when mortgage rates stayed in a low range near 6%. There were 1.29 million units for sale at the end of February, up 2.4% from January, up 4.9% from the year before. That makes a 3.8-month supply of inventory. 6 months is considered a balanced market. Now, tight supply is still pressuring prices. The median price of a home sold in February, $398,000, an increase of 0.3% year over year. It continues to take longer to sell a home, 47 days, up from 42 a year ago. 34% of buyers were first-timers, an increase from 31% a year ago, and 16% of sales were to investors, unchanged from a year ago. Just a quick note, I've got an in-depth interview with celebrity real estate CEO Ryan Serhant on the Property Play right now. He talks AI, competition with Compass, and Mayor Mamdani, cnbc.com/Property Play, or listen on Apple and Spotify. Sarah, back to you.
Okay, great. We will do so. Thank you, Diana Olick. Guys, this wild ride in energy, of course, now down after President Trump spoke yesterday and sort of alluded to the fact that they've made a lot.
Okay, so those home numbers were not horrible. 4.09 million versus 3.8 million expected. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's also not the worst. S&P shouldn't really feel that much pain on it. S&P is still red on the day, 0.3%, but mortgage rates are the lowest they've been since 2022, which is good to see. But yeah, nonetheless, you know, it's not massively opening up the housing market yet.
We've made a lot of progress in the war against Iran, and it's not going to be a forever war, and it should wrap up soon, not this week, but maybe soon. Confirmed by Pete Hegseth, the Department of War Secretary, this morning. Again, weaker oil prices should be relief for those worried about the high gas prices. Beyond the high gas prices, and there's been a lot of sort of hand-wringing about that right now, you know, there is one piece of good news about the consumer that's kind of in the background here that should be really helpful at a time of higher oil prices and higher gas prices, and that's the tax refunds. So Bank of America started tracking tax refunds, and you can see the yellow line, which is 2026, of where we're tracking so far this year, and it's above a lot of the recent years. Total amount refunded now through March 6th, up 9% year over year.
That's a big deal. That's a lot of money coming back to people. So if you are getting a tax refund, this is going to be probably one of the better years based on the big, beautiful bill stipulations to increase the amount of that refund. And that money probably goes back not only into the market, but into the economy, which should be good for broader corporate earnings.
And that's an acceleration. It was 7% last year. So the average refund now, total amount, is up 11%. If historical patterns hold, they say tax refunds will likely remain elevated for the next few weeks through tax filing date, which is April 15th, of course. So that is some extra sort of money in consumers' wallets as we deal with some of the affordability concerns around higher gas
It's a
prices.
little confusing because the number of refunds outright is lagging 2025. So whoever's getting them is getting a nice one, but at this point,
the average size is up a fair bit.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I think the real question is, that's been telegraphed for such a long time. I feel like that money has been sort of promised to all these different corners of the market. There was a decline in the savings rate. There might be some pull forward going to have an offset with energy prices. I don't think there's much of a doubt that, we came into this period with some tailwinds for the consumer. The question is the market willing to kind of rely on that and extrapolate out from that? Consumer cyclical's been a bad.
Again, the refunds should be bullish, but question is, are those refunds actually going to make their way into the stock market? And I doubt it. Most of those refunds are likely going to go into paying for basic necessities and things of that nature. But it should be okay in general if you have a bit more stimulus that's out there, and maybe it combats some of the declining retail sales that we've seen. The problem is if oil continues to be this high and inflation goes up, and then you have all this essentially money that gets put into the system in the form of tax refunds, then you have two prevailing forces that could create more inflationary momentum, which is oil prices and then just people having more money in general. So, it's one of those things we're definitely gonna have to watch out for as we head into CPI going into June and April. ASTS right there, 90.50. That is also green on the day. SoFi, do we have any news on that? We do not, but SoFi is getting an ugly dump right here. Let me check. Let's make the private credit watch list, and we'll put SoFi there because it seems to be trading with those names. So we have what? KKR, Apollo, BlackRock. It's kind of private credit and private equity. Then you have Blackstone, Blue Owl, and we'll put SoFi in there as well. So SoFi getting hit actually the worst out of all of these. Honestly, no, Blue Owl's down 3.4, SoFi's down 3.5. Dare I say it's trading with Blue Owl? Who knows? But we'll keep an eye on both of those together. Yes, Ares, let's put that on the list as well. Ares Management, that's down 2.7%. Pounter now getting dumped a bit harder as we're seeing more of software as IGV catching a bottom. IGV continues to go lower. Lows of the day on software. Software's got to be entirely red. Yep. The only one that's green is Confluent by a penny. That's probably going to go red. Snowflake down 5. Datadog down 5. Palantir down 4. Adobe down 5. ServiceNow down 6. CrowdStrike down 1. Zscaler down 5. Intuit down 5. Twilio down 2. GitLab down 5. Salesforce down 4. All of them have flipped red. Yeah, why is Waste Management down 3%? It hit an all-time high yesterday, Waste Management? Literally hit an all-time high yesterday at 245. Now it's at 237. Why is this one getting hit? NVIDIA is going red. NVIDIA just flipped red. Again, for those wondering what's happening with software, NVIDIA came out with a new open source agent platform that they plan to introduce at GTC next week. And I think the market's thinking that's going to once again kill software. S&P is now getting dumped 0.5%, 674. Not really dumped, but you get my point. It's now starting to lose that 677 range it was stuck in. Just lost 675. Let's see if it can bounce right there. Walmart, is that red? Walmart is green. AMD did not flip red yet, but it's close. Bitcoin just lost $500. Coherent still holding on to its green. AAOI still holding on to a 10% move. HIMS still holding on to 9%, and Lumentum still holding on to 8%. But all of the, 715 to 696. So that one also has taken a bit of a haircut from the highs of the morning. Meta right there at 650. That's down from 659. Once again, we are in the chop. Every single morning. Cannot trust the green. Cannot short the red because it stays in a range. Broadcom 348. That's down from 353. Rocket Lab, that was at 70, still at 70.5. I don't know if we can blame Jane Street anymore. This is just the mood of the market. Oracle down 2% right there. You know, it will culminate in either a massive green swing of momentum for many months or a massive red swing of downside for many months. But I think eventually the chop will end, and I think all of us are hoping the chop will end to the upside. But eventually this consolidation period is going to be over, and the market's going to decide what way it wants to go. And as of now, I don't think it can make that decision because every little headline either takes it up or takes it down, whether the headline is real or not. But it once again reverts to the mean, which has been the story of this entire year. Rubric, that's also down 2.75%. Some of the Max 7 are in a bear market. That is correct. So this builds character, right? Yes, it does. Look at Microsoft, bro. If it goes back below 400 after that big rebound it had last week, it bottomed at 381 on February 24th, got all the way up to 413 4 days ago, and now right back to 403. Okay, let me ask this question. Would people hate a year of consolidation? Let's say for the next, I think we have about 200 trading days left in the year, 215. Would people hate if NVIDIA just stays within 175 to 185? Or if the S&P just stays between 665 to 695? Because the bull case for that happening is two things. Number one, again, you will make a killing off covered calls if you're running them effectively. Because every week, even if the premium starts dropping because the IV stops dropping, you will still make a ton of money off just yielding the volatility. So I think that's a way to generate outsized returns and that they can beat the S&P. Number two is it gives a year for the market to breathe. It's been 3 years of the market just going up. As annoying as it will be, and trust me, it would be annoying. It would not be fun to be sitting on lots of shares of innovative tech companies and for them to just be flat all year. Obviously, everyone wants to see the portfolio grow, but it would be way better than a 2022 scenario. And so I don't hate the idea of that happening when compared to the alternative, which is we go straight down. But obviously, would we want 4 massive green years in a row? Yeah, I mean, everyone would love that. My leaps need a pump. Well, this is the worst thing for leaps. The theta decay on those leaps are not going to be fun if this stays here. I mean, yeah, all options, unless you're selling them, are going to get crushed in this scenario, unfortunately. You're going to need a move to happen for them to print. I would much rather consolidate at a lower level. I understand that. I mean, that would also take away the fears of potential massive downturn. ServiceNow right there down 5% as well. But yeah, I mean, look, if you're buying companies and shares of companies that you love and that you know are generational after they've taken, in some cases, 50% haircuts, and you get a year to do that, I mean, it's one of those years where patience has to be exercised, and you get to build up an inventory of stocks that you know eventually will massively reward you. But you just get a lot of time to do it. I mean, that was essentially 2022. 2022 was getting to buy stocks super cheap, but you have to go through the pain of them seeing them go down every day. This time, it's getting to buy stocks cheap, but they go down for a day, then they go up for a day. So they give you this kind of false sense of hope every other day, and you just end up getting stuck in this range, but you still get to buy them relatively cheaper than where they have historically been. Like if NVIDIA puts up another quarter in a couple months the way they put up this one, and it's even better than this one, and the stock is still flat, I mean, my goodness, dude, what is it going to take at that point? And I think that's also something that the market's trying to consider. Not to mention you have GTC next week, which, NVIDIA's going to have a ton of announcements. I wonder if the market actually buys into any of it or just says, okay, cool. We'll see if the earnings are good enough to care about. My VIX calls and puts are both down more than their theta. Even the VIX can't decide which direction to move yet. That is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. The VIX right here, yeah, it was down 5. Now it's down 2. So the VIX also struggling to figure out which way to go. S&P, I mean, again, it's stuck in that 675 area. Amit, what are the risks of covered calls? 2 big risks. Number 1, you buy 100 shares of Rocket Lab at 70, you sell the covered call at 72, and then Rocket Lab goes to 85. And then you feel bad that your shares at 70, you could have made $15 a share on. You ended up only making $5 a share on with the premium and the strike price collected. And then you missed out on the opportunity cost of having Rocket Lab at 85. So that's the first risk. There's an opportunity cost to your shares getting called away. There's a way to mitigate that by rolling, but that is a risk. And the second risk is you buy Rocket Lab at 70, you sell a call for 72, you collect $300 of premium, you feel amazing, then Rocket Lab goes to 50. And now you're bag holding Rocket Lab down $20 a share. So the risks are the opportunity cost of your shares getting called away or the stock dumping, and then you're holding a bag. And I think the way to mitigate that risk is simply to buy a name that doesn't have the level of volatility that would lead it to get hit that high or that low, and is trading at a reasonable multiple where even if it does get that low, you can actually say, okay, the market's being stupid. I'm not being stupid. Because there are some names that, they fall 30% and they're still expensive. And it's like, you can't do anything about it, right? Like objectively, they're still pretty expensive. The market took away the premium. And then there's other names that they don't even get a premium after they fall. And that eventually this is not going to last. But those names do have to have a little bit of volatility for, the option premiums to be decent. Microsoft right there, still down 2%. So those are the 2 major risks. But, obviously, if you have a massive position in some of these stocks, they can pay dividends. Also, I've gotten messages from people that have Palantir at like $10 and they just are so scared to lose their shares. If you are generally so scared to lose your shares and you have a lot of them, just don't sell the covered call at that point because, you won. You got the stock at $10. It's like a lottery ticket at this point. I don't think Palantir is ever going back to $10. So at that point, you don't do anything. You don't need to generate that extra income because you're up more than 10x. And you just chill out. But for other people that are like, I bought it at 10, I wouldn't mind selling it at 160. If I had to sell some of it at 160, I wouldn't care. Then you can sell the covered call at 160. And if some of it gets called away, some of it gets called away. Tomorrow we have CPI. Yes. So tomorrow we're looking for 2.5%. 2.5%. And I am a little worried we're going to be above 2.5% given PCE and PPI were not good. But 2.5% is the one that we are trying to look for. If we get to 2.4, I think that would be amazing. But if, if we get to 2.6, 2.7 for whatever reason, like PPI or PC, then it would get really ugly. And I wonder how the market would fully respond to that. AMD right there at 202. Can you select tax lots on covered calls? Yes. But you, at least on Robinhood, you have to message their support and tell them exactly which tax lot. It's really stupid. Robinhood should have an option for you to click a tax lot. I know other brokerages have that, but unfortunately you have to message them and say, hey, I want these shares to get sold. So it's like a quick thing, but it should be quicker. But yes, you can do that. S&P right there, 676, getting a little bit of green. Then Rocket Lab, 71.30. Are gas prices up? Yes, gas prices have started to go up. The average in the country now is $3.45. In New Jersey, I saw $4 yesterday. So we are seeing those start to get higher. I don't think they're going to go that much higher from here, given crude kind of crashed yesterday, 30%. So they should normalize, hopefully, at this level, and then eventually get lower. But they are getting some more momentum to the upside. NVIDIA right there, 183.50. Michael Burry just tweeted about this Oracle thing. Interesting. Here's what he said. Then the story is that OpenAI bowed out of the Oracle data center because it wanted NVIDIA Rubin and not the Blackwell, which are 2 different types of data center builds. Oracle borrowed heavily to secure the site and order all the hardware for the build out around Blackwell, and OpenAI is the customer, so the chips will be dated before the building is ready. Then NVIDIA got involved and paid $150 million to block AMD from getting the Oracle build contract. This is how NVIDIA throws its weight around to block AMD use by its customers. The Justice Department is investigating NVIDIA for almost 2 years, but I don't think Trump's DOJ will prosecute NVIDIA. I know the Oracle and OpenAI are still partners. Meta took the build that OpenAI abandoned, so the markets are saying it's not a big deal, but this is absolutely a huge deal. This is playing out as some of us said it would. The signs are showing up in several places, and they are the exact signs that we said would show up. Okay, the confusing thing about all of this, because technically Burry is right about this, but the confusing thing is that Oracle once again is saying that this is not true. But you know, you're looking for people to get some more explanation from this. So Oracle said yesterday, recent media reports about our data centers reflect a fundamental misunderstanding of how AI data centers are built and operated. Oracle's AI data centers, both current and future, are designed to support liquid cooling, higher hardware density, and multiple generations of hardware from a range of vendors. In practical terms, upgrading hardware in an existing AI data center is similar to installing a new refrigerator in an existing home, aka Blackwell to Rubin. The structure does not need to be rebuilt each time the technology improves. Our flagship site remains on schedule with 200 megawatts already operational. Any claim that planned capacity at the site is delayed is inaccurate. Okay, so Oracle is saying that OpenAI, if they want Rubin, they're going to be able to get Rubin, and we're going to still build the 200 megawatts that we were going to build. So again, Burry is right if Oracle is wrong, but if Oracle is saying that no, if it's like, you know, replacing a refrigerator from Blackwell to Rubin, then it's not necessarily that complicated, then OpenAI would still be contracting them. Well, you know what? We're going to get more clarity on the call tonight as the markets are about to flip green completely. I can't give you a reason for why the markets are about to flip green, but they're about to. NVIDIA high of day, S&P $1 away from going green. But on the call today, I think Larry Ellison will give a much more comprehensive understanding of hopefully what the update is on their data centers and how they're working with OpenAI, and you know if that RPO number is still legitimate. There was an earthquake in New York. I didn't feel anything, and I'm pretty close to New York. Was there an earthquake? What was the magnitude? Oh, wow. A lot of people saying they felt an earthquake. I think it was upstate New York. Westchester County is what I'm seeing. I didn't feel anything at all. So I guess it's in a different spot. But yeah, it does seem like there was an earthquake in New York. Now markets flipping green here, folks, across the board. AMD, NVIDIA, is software at least catching a bid? IGV. There's a very small green candle right there, 84.90 to 85.50. So it's definitely moving with the whole market. NVIDIA is looking like 184 is on the table. VIX is down 6%, which continues to be good. Almost below 24. It was Amit ringing the bell too hard. Exactly. That's what happened. But again, this OpenAI Oracle thing, we need some clarity on if the $300 billion RPO that OpenAI essentially gave Oracle a year ago, is that still legit? Is that still happening? And then does Oracle have the ability to build out the data center for OpenAI? Or is Burry right that NVIDIA ended up paying $150 million to block AMD? Because Bloomberg said the same thing, that NVIDIA paid this money and now Meta is getting the contract in that site in Texas. But Oracle's like, no, NVIDIA and Meta are not taking the site. We are continuing to build on this site. And I feel like you got to believe Oracle, right? Because, I mean, it's their data center originally. So hopefully tonight we get some details. But even if it's not, I mean, if Meta is going to take the deal, then you know it's still not bearish. It definitely is bullying AMD, that's for sure. If AMD wanted that space, but yeah, most likely would be rooted in Oracle's assessment of if they have that data center now. Look at NVIDIA go, almost 184 right here. Almost 184. Iranian intelligence, we arrested 30 spies working with America and Israel on our soil. Wow. Hold on, is that true? I mean, they can say they did, but the question is, do you believe them? Because if that's the case, they basically have 30 American and Israeli hostages right now. I'll try to get some confirmation on it. If that's true, they're if that's actually true, they're going to be able to go to Trump and say, hey, if you want these 30 Americans back. Yeah, that's actually a big headline. I wonder if there's actually confirmation. Again, they could easily be lying. They have lied many times in the past about stuff like that. It's also being reported by Iranian intelligence. NVIDIA 184. 184. VIX 2370. 2370. We have finally hit 180. How long has it been since we hit 184? I think it's been about 2 weeks. Been about a week. March 4th, last time we hit it. And then before that, it was March 2nd. So yeah, it's been about a week. Fell all the way to 172. NVIDIA goes green. S&P very close to going green as NVIDIA goes green. Software still not really catching a bid. Palantir still down 3%. Doesn't mean they're Americans just working with it. That's also a fair point. It could also be Iranians who are spies. That's a very fair point, which means it wouldn't be a level of leverage that they have with the United States in terms of negotiating. We'll see if we can get some updates on that. That is interesting if that actually is fair. Palantir right there, 151. SPY 677. NVIDIA again just below 184. So is the old regime basically back in? Well, given the Ayatollah's son is now the new supreme leader, yeah, I would imagine the business as usual is happening until either the United States gets rid of that leader, which Trump didn't confirm that he would do yesterday, or accepts him, but accepts him on certain conditions. And again, I just don't think the Ayatollah's son is going to be like, yeah, we're definitely going to give up all of our uranium. Like, it doesn't feel like he's going to be the most amicable in negotiating, given they just killed his dad. Which then begs the question, all right, are we actually doing a regime change or not? Nubank right there, going green on the day. Micron as well, still up 5%. Accepting him as a no-go, that would be a total failure. Well, I mean, that's also going to be something I think the American people have to kind of reconcile with. If Trump declares end of war victory with this current regime in place, the markets are going to love it because markets are going to be like, thank goodness, we can move back to normal. The markets are not going to be emotional about the politics of who's in power in the regime. They're just going to say, all right, is this over? Can we move on? But the American people are going to wonder, if it's the guy's son, did we just speed up his ability to become, because he was inevitably going to become the supreme leader anyway. So what exactly was the point of doing it? Snowflake still down 3%. Still down 3%. So the software is not catching a bid right here, even with NVIDIA. NVIDIA teetering around 184. It keeps flipping to 183.80 after a few seconds. HIM's right there, still up 8%. Lumentum still up 7% as well. Okay. There you go. Still choppy, but not really seeing a trend. We have the German chancellor. Let's see what he has about Iran. Well, he's speaking in German, so let me just quote what he said because most of us are not going to understand. The quote is, "We have no interest in the dissolution of Iran's territorial integrity, its statehood, or its economic viability. A scenario like this we have seen in Libya, Iraq, or other states in the region would harm all of us. This affects our security, our energy supply, and our potentially developments related to migration." Okay, so basically he's saying we don't want to give up the sovereignty of Iran by dissolving their territorial integrity. And obviously he's pointing to historical examples in which that has not worked out. However, Trump kind of does want to do that. I mean, Trump doesn't want to get rid of their sovereignty. He wants them to be a sovereign nation, but he also wants to control who is in power of the nation, which is a weird way to think of sovereignty. So, the German chancellor right there is potentially disagreeing with the intentions of the United States, but for valid reasons. Obviously, he's looking out for Germany's interests as well. S&P just went green. S&P just went green, 678. NVIDIA now really pumping, 184.30. as that continues to get some momentum. Is the Supreme Leader alive? No, he was killed, but the son of the Supreme Leader is now the current guy who is the new Supreme Leader. Iran's intelligence ministry said it identified and arrested 30 people it accused of spying for the United States. In a statement, the ministry said the suspects included alleged spies, domestic operatives, and media-linked figures across several provinces. Over the past few days, 30 spies, domestic mercenaries, and operational elements of the American enemy were identified and arrested as per the ministry. Okay, that is their official statement on what is happening. Oh boy. All right, let's see if we can get some other updates on exactly how it's playing out. Let's get some coverage on big tech, NVIDIA, Microsoft, and see what the street is saying here. Okay, let's pull this up right here.
Either have to give it away, or when they say it's a paid user, it might be somebody with incentives that's getting a discount somewhere else, and then they're paying for Copilot. But that's going to take a lot of Azure capacity. And when more Copilot usage, the less they can beat Azure, because that's going to consume their own internal cloud. So that's kind of a hamster wheel that just keeps them running in place, while Google and Amazon can crush numbers in the cloud because they're adding capacity and they don't have that problem.
What do we make of this report of NVIDIA's new effort with this open source platform that allows enterprise software companies to use or deploy AI agents? Is this kind of, helping them find the way, or is it some kind of cover for NVIDIA?
I think that it's a big moment. I don't know if that was officially released by NVIDIA.
I don't think so. It's a report.
Some guy. It looked really good, though. Gosh, I want the software developer. It fooled me. But listen, this thing, OpenClaw, since it came out, is the moment.
Yeah.
And it's the tokenization of software. So it's rogue, though. It's something that a bunch of guys are buying Mac Minis and startups are doing it like rogue on the side. And everybody's interested in the enterprise, but they don't know how to do it without hurting their sandbox of security. So the fact that NVIDIA, and I think it's going to turn out to probably be at least semi-accurate, is going to put out a tool that gives you security, corrals all the agents, is going to make this explode even further. And I think that what we're talking about here is a tool that works for you, that can send emails on your behalf, do calendar appointments, do flights, and these workers, it's going to take off. So I think everybody's going to have agents working for them. The more it's enterprise secure, can access your data, the more it's going to actually potentially cut seats, because and shows that you have to move to consumption. And that's a negative mix shift for SaaS companies, because they have no idea how to price for this. It's like, I'll price, and they know this. They're watching me right now, cringing. And
oil's down 8% now. Crude's getting hit. The VIX is absolutely getting wrecked, down 8% as the S&P just hit 679. I can't give you a reason for it, other than it's 10:30 and maybe the market drank their instant coffee and they woke up. But we'll see if we can hold on to this. But we are seeing oil down, VIX down, markets up.
and the beneficiaries are going to be Anthropic, OpenAI, Google Cloud, and the clouds that power this. And it's going to be a massive shift of epic.
They're watching you and thinking you have it wrong, because
they've been watching me for 2 years saying I have it wrong.
But they say it accelerates their core business. The use of AI. It accelerates their core business, and we've seen that in some of the results, like a Salesforce, for instance.
Okay.
And that they have this growing AI business as well, which I know you're skeptical about.
Sarah, I mean, the stocks go down, and if you look at the results, the organic growth, when you look at Salesforce, currency is beaten quarters. The analysts see right through this. They report, they say they beat. There's currency effect, and
I think this is the headline. Wall Street Journal. President Trump said he was eyeing a quick end to the war in Iran as some of his advisors privately urged him to look for an exit plan amid spiking oil prices and concerns that a lengthy conflict could spark political backlash. That came out 3 minutes ago, and that's kind of when the market started turning. Now, that's not that different than what we heard yesterday, other than this idea of advisors privately urging him to look for an exit plan. That might be a little bit new. I'm going to go through the article right here and see if we can get some like updates on what these private advisors are exactly saying. I mean, that reaffirms this idea that Trump's looking for an off-ramp, and maybe the off-ramp is that the war is going to end sooner than what people think.
You can tell that Agent Force is not propping up the results. Adobe's guiding for deceleration. There's cracks in the results. The street is getting this right. And there's a dead cat bounce right now, and I'm not sure how long it lasts. Maybe it's over today. But in general, what is going to happen is a massive disruption. And these things are not a 2-year thing, and they just continue. I really admire like a ServiceNow. I know it's getting crushed today. I think they're really hustling. I think they're just, if I was a SaaS CEO, I would actually not focus on near-term results. I'd be consolidating, and I'd be getting ahead of this like Adobe did a decade and a half ago by changing their pricing model. And
it does suck, though, that even though the software stocks are trying to, cooperate with this new AI world, any bit of momentum is just getting faded. You're seeing NVIDIA and the S&P hit some new levels today. IGV just cannot catch a bid, still down 2.26% as the software names continue to go red. Here's the Wall Street Journal article quote. Some of Trump's advisors in recent days have encouraged him to articulate a plan to extract the U.S. from the war and make the case that the military had largely achieved its objectives, according to people familiar with the matter. While many in the president's conservative base still support the initial operation, some of the president's advisors have privately expressed concerns that a longer war could deplete that support. Trump has been briefed on some polling about the war. The People said public polls released in recent days show that most Americans oppose the war. Carolyn Levitt said the vast majority of Americans support ending the threat, but the polls show the opposite. Some of Trump's advisors watch with alarm as oil prices shot over to $100 a barrel. They have also fielded calls about the midterm elections from some nervous Republicans, according to people familiar with the matter. Economic advisor to Trump said when the price of gas and oil rise, so does everything else. Given affordability was already an issue, this leads to real challenges. Trump's team concluded in recent days that they needed a more aggressive communications plan to sell the public on the war as many consumers deal with rising gas prices. Here's my question. Did they not think that gas prices would go up if they bombed Iran, out of all places? Like, is there no one inside of the administration that said, hey, if we do this, it's going to have an impact? Like, this is not just capturing Maduro. This is a little bit different. There's something called the Strait of Hormuz that's involved. I mean, it's kind of incredible. If this is true, then now his advisors are telling him we need an off-ramp. After doing what? Killing the Ayatollah? Like, what else has happened that has meaningfully changed the situation in Iran, other than pissing off everyone and making them even more angry? Like, I really wonder how they didn't calculate that before they went into this. I mean, that's just objectively, like, how did you, like, you had to assume there would be an increase in oil if we did this. And if you didn't assume that, then it feels like this was not a calculated decision that happened kind of rapidly without really any action. SoFi still down, S&P still green. NVIDIA is going now. Look at that. Maybe she's seeing 185. Maybe. This is quite interesting. Again, I am not a geopolitical expert. I'm not the president. I'm just logically, if you are going to attack a region that controls 20% of the world's oil supply, do you not think there's going to be an impact to that? Like, if the logic in this Wall Street Journal article is that Trump is now concerned of oil prices and his private advisor is saying we need an off-ramp, how did they not think before going into this that, well, eventually oil prices would spike up and you would have to be prepared for that? And again, if you don't actually get a regime change, then objectively, what was the point of doing this? like that. And it's not me asking that. It's, I think, the American people that are going to be asking, what was the point of doing this if we didn't actually change the regime? Maybe getting rid of their nukes, which, I think the Trump administration has to be a lot more explicit on exactly what we did to get rid of their nuclear capabilities, because the idea was in June of 2025 with Midnight Hammer, we had done it, or we at least pushed it back several years. Trump did say yesterday that they were 2 weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon. I don't know exactly if he's telling the truth about that, but yesterday in the press conference, he did say they were 2 weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon, which maybe is the story that he's going to sell to the American people. But if we don't get a regime change, then that story is not going to be sold. ServiceNow still down 4%. Robinhood still down 0.5%. Bitcoin also bouncing back. All right, so the entire market right here, outside of software. Let's see if S&P can touch 680. So far, they've proved Iran can actually shut down the Strait even when weakened. That's a bad result. I agree. And again, I'm not an expert on the Strait of Hormuz, but I would imagine inside of Trump's political council and his defense council, they should probably have some people that know exactly what, like, can simulate a scenario of, hey, if we do this, here is the first thing Iran would go for, which is, now in hindsight, it seems obvious, oil. But it shouldn't be hindsight for the people that are actually engaging in the war. It should be hindsight for everyone else who's not an expert on this stuff, like me. But for his advisors, they should have easily been able to tell him, yeah, oil is going to shoot up. And if it stays shot up, then the midterms are just going to be harder. Bitcoin right there, 70.4, up from 69.3. Nebius, are we moving? Nebius still up 2.3%. 2.3%. Okay, I guess we're going green now. 679 S&P, Rocket Lab 72, NVIDIA. Let me check resistance at 184. Bassent probably told him, well, Trump did hint that Bassent was not a fan of doing this. And obviously Bassent probably thought something like this could happen. Trump was kind of passive aggressive about this. He was like, even Scott didn't want us to do it, but now Scott's a fan, right? And the camera moved over to Bassent, and Bassent was just smiling. So maybe he did have some people trying to say to not do it. 185 resistance for NVIDIA, 139,000 shares. 139,000 shares. Adobe down 3%. We need your instant coffee sip. Guys, I'm not going to lie. I went to Whole Foods yesterday because the weather was nice, and I went for a walk, and I got some lunch at Whole Foods, and I found this probiotic iced tea that's 35 calories, no sugar. And I'm kind of thinking that's the new instant coffee guy. Like, it was so good. I need to buy like a 24 pack of them. And, now that it's getting warmer, do we really need coffee? We can get something cold in the morning. I think we're switching to iced tea. I think we're switching to probiotic 35 calorie iced tea from Whole Foods. I think that's what we're doing, dude. I'm not going to lie. It tasted better than the instant coffee. It was cold, and it had a little bit of lemon flavor. I think it's not going to be as fun as making the instant coffee, but I think that's what we're doing. Which one? What's the brand? I think the brand is called Day One. Is that what it's called? Day One? No, Half Day. Half Day iced tea. Half Day iced tea. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I went to Whole Foods. Yes, I was like, oh, this is amazing. You guys are going to accuse me of being sponsored by them, being sponsored by the instant coffee brands, but man, they were amazing. I had to buy 2 of them, dude. I drank the first one. I was like, dude, I need a second one. It was actually really good. NVIDIA, 185, baby. 185. There it is. There she is. Took 2 weeks to get here. But here we are. 185. Yeah, it did cost $2.50, which was kind of stupid. Like, should barely cost $1, but it was good, bro. All right, so someone just bought those 140,000 shares at 185. And we're just below it right now, but let's see we can get back there. It's half gay tea. Okay, that's inappropriate. But this is the website. This yellow bottle right here. I think we're gonna have to crack open one of these every morning, and that's gonna be the new instant coffee. I'm not gonna lie, the website does look pretty gay. I'm not. This is the fruitiest website I've ever seen for iced tea. But this shit was phenomenal, bro. Good for your gut, probiotic. That's what we're doing, folks. I think that's what we're doing. 184.80 on NVIDIA. Palantir still red. S&P very close to 680. Very close to 680. Iranian parliament speaker says if the enemy initiates war on our infrastructure, Tehran will do the same. Okay, same stuff they said yesterday. Another headline from Bloomberg. The U.S. has spent $5 billion on munitions in the first 2 days of war. The U.S. military used $5.6 billion in munitions in the first 2 days of conflict with Iran, including long-range precision weapons and air defense rounds. All right, market turning. Once again, getting our hopes up because why not? Wow, someone just bought 25 million of calls on the Qs. Goodness. I mean, that could obviously be put forth with someone who's buying puts as well. The Q's got to be green right now. Q's are going green, 610 on the Q's. 25 million of calls. Goodness gracious. Any news on Triple V? Is he okay? Yes, he's been traveling for the past couple weeks. He was actually in Germany last week. So I was talking to him over the weekend. Yeah, I mean, look, he's doing good. Obviously, he's in a lot of the same positions that we're in. Palantir, Hood, he's in Broadcom, NVIDIA. So unfortunately, the downturn has affected everybody. But he also runs a lot of covered calls on his portfolio. So he's been milking the covered calls. And, you know, he's been weathering the storm. He also bought 1 million shares of VG back at like $6. So that one has also worked out pretty well for him. SPY right there, 679, Palantir 151, NVIDIA now definitively breaking over 185. We hit 185.11. 185.11. How about Oracle? Is that catching a bid? Oracle is not working with NVIDIA. Amit, you should at least take some non-finance related sponsors. No one's going to be mad about you telling us what coffee you're drinking in the morning. I've just never liked the idea of sponsors, dude. I love being able to say that no one pays me. I really love that independence. So that's why I'm genuinely the instant coffee thing. I know it looked like a sponsor, but it was more just something fun to do every morning. Kind of like just not having that associated with me. NVIDIA 185.20. There's the breakout. S&P 680. Dude, we were at 659 yesterday. 680. That is such a big move to the upside off basically Trump saying, I think the war is going to end soon. And hopefully we hold it. But man, what a freaking reverse. Imagine just going leverage long yesterday. At any point before Trump had those CBS comments, you'd be up a lot today. Now, individual stocks are kind of in the same range. Like Rocket Lab hasn't moved too much. Palantir basically flat. But the index itself definitely moving. NVIDIA right there, 185.25. Now, again, NVIDIA is also probably getting a pre-GTC pump. So GTC could be a sell the news. That could easily happen. But, you know, at least it's nice to see some of the momentum. Zeta, are we flipping green Zeta? Is that still red? That is still red on the day, 3%. Hood, are we at 80? Hood is very close to 80. Where's Lemonade? Lemonade stuck at 55. Tesla. Oh, by the way, some of you guys weren't on the close yesterday. I don't know if you saw the new video from Figure, but even Elon was impressed. Figure put out a video of a robot cleaning a living room. And look, I know it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but at the end of the day, like it's like turning the TV off, it's spraying the table, it's putting the pillows in place. And even Elon was like, hey, is this autonomous or is this, is this happening from a operation? And Brett said it's fully autonomous, running on Helix 2, which is their collaboration with Brookfield. So they have a lot of training data on human homes. Whether you like Figure or not, they are the only company outside of the Chinese companies actually putting out videos to show robots doing stuff, even if the demos are not the most exciting. Like Optimus has not really done anything like Figure has done. And I think Optimus has the capability to. I think Elon just doesn't want to show it off yet, but realistically, we just haven't seen anything like that. So the more that happens, the more proliferation we'll see and the potential market opportunity for humanoid robots. Tesla right there, 403, as that's going green. Oh, the Ackman IPO. Yeah, let's talk about that. So Ackman apparently is getting ready to take Pershing Square public, which, it's an interesting idea because a lot of the stocks in Pershing Square you can just buy yourself. So he's really trying to sell people on the concept of him managing it. So the goal is to sell shares at $50, and he's targeting at least $5 billion, including $3 billion in private placement. If completed, the ticker symbol will be PSUS, and essentially you'll be able to buy a stake in Pershing Square, which is essentially his hedge fund that he has managed for 14 years. 2012, they started it. Again, the main holdings are Amazon, Meta, Chipotle, Hilton Hotel, and Google. So you're basically buying Bill Ackman's brain here, and you're trusting in his ability to concentrate capital in a pretty heavy way. And you get to own a stake of that. Look at the S&P, 680.4. If we could get 681, that would also be nice. It feels like exit liquidity. So I'm happy you said that. I agree. All of the IPOs are sus, including SpaceX. Like Anthropic is not worth $134 billion in my opinion in the public markets. And the only reason they're getting that comp is probably because people look at Palantir at $300 billion, and that's why they give it not Anthropic, Databricks. Anthropic probably is worth more than $100 billion. Stripe, I don't think it's worth $160 billion. Like a lot. So is Pershing Square, is it worth $50 a share for Bill Ackman's expertise? I don't think so. And so it doesn't matter what I think. The market's going to decide what happens. But it does feel like the reason he's thinking this is an opportunistic time is because there's market momentum. So you have to be really careful with some of these IPOs that are coming out. Is crude at 83? Really? Are we actually? Wow. Crude's down 12. Okay, that's why the market's running. Crude's down 12%. NVIDIA hitting the high of the day. VIX is down 10%. S&P busting through 680. Software is the only thing that cannot catch a bid, which is hurting Palantir as well. The Qs are now up almost 0.5%. Tesla 404. About Robinhood's venture fund, RVI, that one getting a little bit of love, 3%, but still under the net asset value. Bitcoin 71 for the first time today. Okay, so you got Bitcoin at 71. You got the VIX down 10%. You got crude dropping off a cliff. I mean, imagine going long crude yesterday. Even after the 20% dip, you're down another 15% right now. So we're seeing a ton of downside there, which is good for the equity markets. And then as a result, XLE, VG, Next Decade, all of those are getting hit as well. EU Energy Commissioner says the IEA will present an in-depth analysis of pros and cons of releasing oil reserves, which likely means that they are thinking of seriously doing that. Dogecoin's up 7%. That is crazy. Dude, no one talks about Dogecoin anymore. Wow, it's 9 cents. I felt like it was more than 9 cents. Does anyone even still own this thing? It's down 16% this year. It's down 42% over the past year. Yeah, this thing is kind of not really done well. Ethereum, that's getting a little bit of a bid with Bitcoin. Again, can you trust this is the question. It's nice to see a little bit of a move. But can you actually trust it here? 403 on Tessie. Bought BMNR 23, sold the 24 covered call. BMNR right here, 21.18. That's now 2.5%. What is your view on the BMNR short report by Culper? Is this recent or is that an old one? If it's recent, I have not read it yet, but it sounds like it's one of the old ones. I will look into it. I imagine the short report has to do with three tenets, either tokenization, stablecoins, or DATs in general. And at least from a stablecoin perspective, maybe tokenization is not growing super rapidly, even though based on what Robin had said, it seems like it is starting to take off. But stablecoins, if you looked at Circle's earnings, I mean, the supply of USDC is becoming incredible. Circle right there up another 5. Circle's been the best crypto long all year. It's better than Robinhood, better than Coinbase, better than MicroStrategy. This thing was $54. It's doubled in a month off stablecoin. And I don't know if it feels meme-ish either. Like, they put up some damn good earnings. Granted, the stock was at 300 at one point, so obviously there's a lot of people that are sitting on bags, but that is a bull case for Ethereum. And as a result, probably for BMNR. Roy covered it in a recent vid. Okay, I will take a look at his video later and see what he was here over the weekend, last weekend, and we talked about BMNR and Ethereum, and he continues to be pretty bullish on it. He just recognizes that right now crypto's stuck in a macro headwind. As much as he loves the broader thesis on Ethereum, or if you love the broader thesis on Bitcoin, that macro headwind is not pretty. And rate cuts are really, I think, the only way to solve it. I mean, if Bitcoin and Ethereum can't catch a bid right now, I don't think the Clarity Act is going to do much. I think you're going to need more liquidity and less leverage in the system, which is what caused that initial dump last year. But that's going to take more time. Bitcoin, though, making a big move. That's a $2,000 candle from the lows. $2,000 candle from the lows. HIMS is losing a lot of momentum. That's weird. Market's going up. You would think HIMS would, from a high beta perspective, go with it. It's now up 3% today. It was up 17%. As this one now takes a bit of a dip. I bought the bottom of Circle. Should I sell right now? Obviously, it's a very subjective thing, but I mean, if you're up 100% in less than a month, in this market, those are incredible results. So now if you bought 5 shares, it's whatever, right? But if you made it a real position, I mean, I would personally, I'm taking out my cost basis, because in this market, you just don't know. You don't know if this can get erased as quickly as you got it. But it also depends how deeply you understand the company, right? Like, I thought the earnings were good, but I'm not an expert on stablecoins. If you really, really understand where the market's going, then maybe that bottom was the ultimate bottom for Circle, and you're not going to see those prices anytime soon. Pounds right there, still down 3%. S&P breaks through 681. Breaks through 681, and we're getting some green. The Red Cat CEO, guys, I don't know if he's going to be joining. I sent him the link. I can see on X he hasn't seen the link yet. He did confirm yesterday for 10:45, but he is the CEO of a public company, so something might have came up. But he's been wanting to come on for the past couple of weeks. It's just the scheduling hasn't worked out. So if we don't get him today, we'll definitely get him later this month. Onto the show. S&P right there, 681, getting some love. Corning, is that going up? Corning is up 7%. That is also green. See, 4 weeks from now, we're going to say what war higher. Okay, so here's a question to everybody. And I want everyone to think as a voter, not just as an investor. If 4 weeks from now, let's say S&P is at 7,100. Let's just assume S&P breaks through, the war is over, oil's back to 65, S&P is at 7,100. All of our portfolios are just super green. But we did not actually get a regime change. And the current Ayatollah, who is the previous Ayatollah's son, is still the supreme leader. And Iran hasn't really agreed to, change or liberate the theocracy that they are conducting on the people. Is that a win for Trump politically? Is that a win? Is it a win if the markets rally, oil goes back to normal in 4 weeks, the war is over, we never had to deploy troops, but there wasn't actually any regime change that liberated the Iranian people, or quite frankly, took away the nuclear capabilities because the Iranian people did not submit to unconditionally surrendering as per what Trump said. I think that's the question. All of us as investors are going to be happy that the markets went up. But we also have to think about all the people that, don't invest and have to ask themselves, did it matter? Now, objectively, if it actually ends in 4 weeks, the midterms are not for another 7, 8 months. So there's plenty of time for Trump to re-architect the narrative, even after going through all this, if it ends within the next month, because, he can brag about all the other good stuff he's done for the next 7 months before the midterms. If this lasts for the next 7 months, we're going to have some big issues. I don't think it will. But obviously, I don't think the Trump administration is incentivized to keep it going until the midterms. S&P, high of day, 681.50. 681.50. Hood, almost at 80. Google, are we getting a bid? Google, 309. That's going up. Tesla, 405. That is also going green. Do a poll. Okay, let me do a poll here. So basically, spent billions doing nothing. Well, so that would be one perspective. The other perspective from the Trump administration would be that we had to attack to show our authority, or yada, yada. Or maybe they're going to say we got rid of their nuclear weapons. They're going to make some argument for why they did it. And that's why I think it's an interesting political question, because the markets will move on, but I wonder how people will ultimately think about why we did it. If Trump leaves in a month, but no regime change, is it going to be seen as a win? That is the question. Senator Majority Leader Thune says he hasn't spoken to President Trump since he vowed not to sign other bills until the Save America Act passes. Trump did say yesterday he's not signing anything until the voter ID stuff is passed through law. But Thune reiterates the votes aren't there for a talking filibuster. It's just a reality. Thune also says he's explored using reconciliation for the Save America Act, but it's also very difficult, citing that it's a vehicle for spending and revenue. Thune says it would be possible to include pieces of the bill, but it would mean giving money to states and letting them decide whether to actually implement the policy. So Trump did make the argument yesterday that he's not signing any new bills, including the Clarity Act, until the Save America Act is passed, which essentially that act is implying that if people don't have their IDs, then they can't vote. And so I guess we'll see if they can use reconciliation to pass that bill. They would need only 51 votes instead of 2/3 if they use reconciliation, but they would have to justify a budget element to a voting bill, which theoretically you can probably connect those two together, but they're not exactly as correlated. S&P right there, still green, 681. AMD is green, 205. $205 for Mr. AMD. Micron as well. Yep, that's up 6%. As that is green. Let's get an update right here from the White House on what exactly they're saying for the current status of the war.
That have been hit so hard.
Yeah, good morning to you, Carl. We've heard from the president over the past couple of days, both things, right, in terms of the length of this military conflict in Iran. One, that the United States is in this indefinitely as long as it takes. The other, that this is a short-term commitment by the United States, and it will be over soon, and oil markets and stock markets will bounce back to normal as soon as we're on the back end of it. We got this update from the Pentagon, top officials there this morning. Pete Hegseth had this to say.
Today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet.
And as to where we are in the process of this war in Iran, the secretary said that it's not for him to say. Ultimately, it's President Trump's call. He said it's not for him to say whether we're at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the war in Iran. Guys, back over to you.
Ackman, thanks for that. What is next in the way of briefings? Are we getting We're not getting quite daily defense briefings, right, Eamon?
Yeah, not quite on a daily tempo yet at the Pentagon, but we do expect a 2 p.m. briefing from the White House. I'm going to be headed over there from here momentarily, and we'll hear from Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, see if she can put a little bit more of a frame on this for us. Because you saw the dramatic impact yesterday the president's comments had when he used that word complete around the Iran war. Clearly, the market wants this to be over and wants to lurch higher again. The question is, what kind of messaging are we going to get at that 2 p.m.?
The market definitely wants this to be over. If Caroline Leavitt today gives us some more phrasing of the war essentially coming to an end, if that's what she's instructed to talk about, and you know that's basically what Trump would want her to say, if that's the message they want to get out there, then I mean the markets could continue to see this pump last. 680.81 on the S&P. We did touch 681.70 for a second. Robinhood just below 80. BMNR is up 2%. Rivian up 7%. NEO up 10%. Micron up 6% as well. Unfortunately, Palantir's red, but the software names are just getting wrecked. Palantir at its lowest level of the day. IGV cannot catch a bid. Down 2%. Barely up from 84. Salesforce, Adobe, all of them not really buying this. That NVIDIA headline about new open source agents, I think, really wrecked the software names today, even if it's not justified, and oil prices going down isn't really changing that. Oh, the TSMC numbers. Yes, this was important. And yeah, we're going to have Technical Tuesday today. The TSMC numbers were actually good. We got the monthly numbers, but we did get a decline month over month. So they're up 30% year over year, but it's down 43% from the growth they posted in February of 2025. So you are seeing deacceleration, which is normal. It's not going to consistently accelerate on a growth basis, but the actual raw revenue is up 30% year over year. And so, yeah, I mean, TSM continues to be strong. Again, they had a really good earnings. They increased CapEx by $14 billion. So chip demand not necessarily going down, but, you know, overall top line growth is technically decreasing. I don't think that had that much of an impact, though, on the semis today. The main impact seemed to be what was happening with NVIDIA. SMH right there, 401. That was at 380 last week. Gemini's pumping. Gemini catching a bid. This one, yeah, also up 10%. That was up last week as well. EU urges member states to lower taxes on energy. Wow. The EU talking about lowering taxes. I mean, you know, when these prices get this bad, sometimes you officially got to lower prices. Boeing delivered 51 jets in February, most since 2017. Well, it's not bad for Boeing. Boeing stock right there, down 2% on the day, but pretty decent headline. Yes, we will have TT tonight. We'll do Oracle earnings. We're not going to listen to the Oracle call because you guys said you want to do Technical Tuesday over that, which I'm in favor of as well. But we will keep up with Oracle earnings. Are the TSMC going to Intel? I mean, to an extent, yes. TSMC is definitely selling some of this stuff to Intel. But I mean, look, at its core, Intel's had a massive run, and this one's it's up 3%, but it's been stuck around this 40 to 50 range. Their guidance was exceptional. It's just they are also having a ton of supply issues. NVIDIA is one of the only companies where their supply chain is so like precise and almost perfect. They have hiccups, but there's not a lot of them. The rest of these guys, you know, it's hard to get a supply chain. Even there was an article 2 weeks ago about Google TPU supply chains just not being as strong to get all the TPUs that Google wanted out there into the world. HIM's right there getting a pretty big sell-off. This is the thing about the short float. I think a lot of the shorts might continue to stay short HIMs if they just don't think there's going to be a big move to the upside, because the 40% move that happened doesn't have to reverse, but it still only puts the stock at 23. And I wonder if the shorts just continue to pile in and if there's some bad headlines about earnings, even though the Novo stuff is over with. That continues to be an issue. NVIDIA right there, 185.50. 185.50. Amit, I got my mom to watch the show today. She's 75 and loves it. Well, hello to the mom. Thank you for being here. And I'm happy you were watching the show. It's super cool. It's super, super cool when either parents or kids or loved ones in general, tune into the show. And very, very humbling when people tune in. We're all here together, either making money, losing money, or being confused about why we're making money, like why we're green or why we're losing money, why we're going red. And that's been the theme for the past 3 months. Rocket Lab, 72.56, that's green. Bitcoin, 71,000. IDF has detected a new ballistic missile launch from Iran. Okay, so I know Trump says this war is going to end soon, but Iran and the IDF continue to go back and forth. IDF say they've detected a new ballistic missile launch from Iran. Netanyahu said, we have more strikes to come. The aim of the war is to overthrow Iran's system of clerical rule. It's kind of the same stuff he's been saying, similar to what Trump has been saying as well. Traders are paying the largest premium in years for call options on oil futures relative to puts, a clear sign investors see greater risk of a price spike than a drop, as per Bloomberg. Prediction markets are still pointing to crude getting above 120. Even after crude has collapsed by more than 30%, these prediction markets still think that this war is not going to end. And realistically, if it doesn't end anytime soon, there is nothing to say that crude can't get right back up to those levels that it was at yesterday. 84.45 down 10% right here on crude. Gold and silver is also going up. Is that normal? Well, again, gold and silver should be going down when risk on assets are going up, but I don't think gold and silver are risk off assets anymore. I think they're risk on. I think if the markets pump, they pump. And the reason they're risk on is because there's supposed to be a hedge against money printing. But if we are thinking that debt will increase, deficits will increase, and money printing will increase, then rate cuts actually end up being kind of bullish for gold and silver when they theoretically should be bearish because it increases more liquidity, and risk on assets obviously need more liquidity. The only thing it hasn't been bullish for is Bitcoin, unfortunately, but maybe that starts to change. BTC 71,185. Airbnb has named longtime Uber executive as its new global head of operations. Dude, I'm not going to lie. I used to be a fan of Airbnb, and now I just got a hotel. Like, this stock has done nothing for 5 years. Look at this chart. And it's just, it's an incredible product, but man, like the bull case that I think we all thought about Airbnb years ago, just as a product, like a hotel is just, it's just a better experience, to be honest. Unless you're with your friends and you want some mansion or, some nice experience and something, that's different. But if you just need a place to stay, just get a freaking hotel. It's probably going to be cheaper. Grab at 395, Hims at 23, Boeing down 1%. ARC, is that flipping green? ARC is close, but that's still red. How much is ARC up year to date? ARC's got to be down like 10%. ARC is down 5%. Okay, so it's obviously underperforming the S&P, but it's not as worse as you would have thought. And then again, I think Palantir is getting caught up in the software sell-off today, along with a bunch of these names. S&P still holding 681, not giving that up yet. Not giving that up. Oh, Kohl's had earnings. Let's check their numbers. Forgot about Kohl's. They were down 10% in the morning. I think they recovered. KSS, yeah, they're up 7% now. So down 10 to up 7. They beat by 27% on EPS, $1.07 versus 84 cents. Revenue, 4.9 versus 5. So they missed by 2% on revenue. Revenue's down 4% year over year. EPS is up 13% year over year. 30% beat on EPS. Can't be too upset about that. Cannot be too upset about that. For Kohl's, NVIDIA, 186. There's the breakout. There is the breakout. Will it last? Will it last now is the question. IGV still cannot catch a bid. Down 2%. At least it's up from 84. NVIDIA leading the way. Yeah, the GTC is definitely going to be potentially where the market maybe turns things around. I think if we get an NVIDIA 185 close, S&P 680 close, that's 2 days in a row of really nice action. Last time we had that was about a week and a half ago. 681 now on the SP. But so far, at least in February, we have not had 3 green days in a row. That has not happened throughout February. It's not happened in March. So if we can somehow go green today, which seems like there's a decent shot, even if we lose some of this momentum, tomorrow will be, if we can actually set 3 green days in a row as a record. And tomorrow you have CPI, which would give you a much more definitive understanding of if we deserve to go green. Let's look at the heat map. Software and oil stocks are the main ones that are getting hit. But this is still pretty green. Tech is green. Semis are green. Defensives are green. Financials have been getting wrecked all week, including private credit. They started flipping at least a little green. The credit rating agencies are still down, S&P and Moody's. Industrials are relatively green. Lockheed and Raytheon are down, probably on the idea that the war could be ending soon. Also, that could be another reason why Palantir is down. If the war is ending soon, maybe the market's selling off the defense names. Again, software is your major red sector. Utility is a little red. Real estate a little red. The housing data was okay this morning, not the best. But tech leading the way as that goes green. Pakistani Navy says its warships will accompany the country's commercial ships in the Middle East to safeguard the steady supply of energy to Pakistan. Okay, so you've got more of these countries making sure their Navy can defend the oil coming in. Israeli army warns residents of towns in the south to evacuate. As they're basically saying, IDF identified missiles launched from Iran towards the territory of the state of Israel. Defensive systems are operating to intercept the threat at the moment. Does Adobe report tomorrow? I think they do. Tomorrow after hours. Tomorrow is Wednesday. No, tomorrow Thursday is when they report. Thursday is when they report. Okay, I will not be doing the market close tomorrow. I will be doing the market open. I will be FSDing for 4 hours to go to an event that you guys will find out about on Thursday. But I will not be doing the market close tomorrow. We'll be doing the market open, so we're not going to get to cover Path earnings. I know that's a big software name, $10 billion company people care about. But we will cover Oracle today, and we will have the regular market open tomorrow. NVIDIA now 186.18. 186.18. Ditching us again. This one I kind of have to. This one I kind of have to. It's going to be a long drive, but this will be my second 5-hour drive on FSD. It should be like 4 hours. It shouldn't be 5. So last one was Boston. This time it's not Boston, but should be a fun one. NVIDIA kind of breaking out here, folks. 186.34. 186.34. You're on FSD for 4 hours, so why can't you stream? Dude, if the police in Jersey catch you even looking at your phone while you're driving, you're done. Like, you're done. I got pulled over once for doing that. And the guy gave me a warning because I have such a clean record. Like I've never gotten a ticket. But he was basically like, in this state, it is like they're enforcing it so heavily. If they even see you looking at the phone, they pull you over. So there's no way I'm going to be able to stream on the highway, even if I'm on FSD. Unfortunately, they don't care. And the reason I got pulled over is because I was talking to someone and they were on speaker. So I was like holding the phone next to me. Now, honestly, I should have just, put it through the Bluetooth in the Tesla, but it wasn't working that day. So I just like picked up the phone and then I heard the sirens and I was like, all right, I'm getting pulled over. But yeah, I mean, it's really tough to do anything at this point with FSD. And, Tesla doesn't assume liability either because Tesla says, hey, it's, you have to supervise everything. Baba's up 4%. Amazon also up 1%. You never look at us anyhow. No, I do. This is what I look at for 8 hours every single day. This is what you guys look like. That's why I like doing the meetups, because it's fun to actually see you in person versus all these usernames. Also, for those that haven't seen my background, it's the gayest thing ever. That was for 3 years. That's been the background. But yeah, that's where you guys are every day. So, speaking of meetups, so 2 things. Number 1, if you are going to the Chicago meetup, I need you to fill out this form. I'm going to pin this right now. It'll take less than 30 seconds. Before we book the venue, I have to make sure we have enough people coming because this is not New York. This is not LA. So we kind of got to make sure people are coming through. So please sign up to that. It should take 30 seconds. May 9th is what we're thinking for the Chicago meetup. May 9th, which will be a Saturday. So please sign up to that so we can get a little bit of an understanding. And then again, LA meetup, March 28th is in a couple weeks. I will link that as well. So for anyone who wants to come to that, you can sign up for that as well. Singapore, I will have details very soon. I will have the same Google form for people for Singapore, but we should have details pretty soon. You haven't mentioned Seattle yet. We are probably not doing Seattle this year. We're trying to just get the main ones out of the way, but I know that's one that a lot of people have definitely asked for. 5/9 is my wedding day. No chance. Dude, to be honest, I mean, you could get married at the meetup. It's not that big of a deal. Like, there'll be a lot of people. We'll celebrate, you can make jokes about the stock market while you're getting married. So, I mean, I would love to officiate it if you're down for that. But if the wife does not want the wedding at a stock market meetup event, then you probably should go to your wedding. Yeah, you get a free wedding venue. A free wedding venue. It's not a horrible idea. No, but in all seriousness, congrats on the wedding. That's super cool. That'll be fun. And hopefully you can make another meetup one day with your wife. And you guys can both come down. Tesla right there, 403, AMD 205. Palantir, looks like she might lose 150 as the software names continue to sell off. You're going to mispronounce everything. Dude, if I had to actually officiate a wedding, oh my gosh. I had to say the name of the bride and the groom. It would be so bad. It would be so freaking bad. Got to come to Denver. I've been to Denver once in my life. I would love to go back. It was fun when I went. I went in 2017. I don't even think, no, it was Colorado Springs. It wasn't Denver. I stopped at the Denver airport, but Colorado Springs was where I was at. If she doesn't want to get married at the meetup, she's not the one. I mean, if she can't get married with a bunch of strangers at a stock market meetup, maybe we got to think twice. Maybe. Okay, I'm trying to see some other headlines that are, I still see the Meta acquired Maltbook thing, which was very interesting. I didn't think they would actually buy Maltbook, but they did. Again, it's a social media network for agents, which is, I mean, for those that haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. It's Reddit for agents. I played with it a little bit a while ago just to see what people were saying. 2 million posts, 13 million comments, 194,000 verified AI agents. I wonder what Meta sees in this. I wonder if Meta wants to build their own social network for agents. The thing is, how do you monetize this? Because agents can't buy anything off ads. So what would you monetize if you're Meta by buying this? Or are they just trying to buy the team that built it to build other cool agentic stuff on the platform? So I don't know. That one's interesting. Amit, you are Joey in the Days of Our Lives. I've never seen Days of Our Lives. I don't know who Joey is inside of Days. I mean, I've heard of the show, but I've never watched it. But I'll take that as a compliment, I think. I thought you meant Joey from Friends. Friends I have watched. Oh, that's a Friends reference? Wait, but isn't Days in Our Lives a show? No, I'm so serious, bro. Isn't Days in Our Lives a show? I thought he meant Joey from... Joey was an actor in Days in Our Lives in Friends. I'm so confused. I'm so freaking confused. In the show, he's the actor in Friends. Okay, but then where does Days in Our Lives come from? What's the... You're trolling. I'm so not trolling, bro. Why did you mention Days of Our Lives? Joey from Friends is an actor. He acted in Days in Our Lives. Oh, so it's the same Joey that I'm talking about. Okay, now I get it. I understand. Sorry, the way it was phrased, I didn't fully get it. That's the name of the soap in the Friends. Okay, I didn't know that. I guess I didn't see that episode of Friends. If he had just said Joey from Friends, I would have understood it. It is what it is. Tesla right there. 403. I've never watched Friends. I actually really enjoy it. I mean, I haven't seen every single episode, but I did enjoy it. Just say it's a classic and you're good. It's not just one episode. Well, hold on. When did... Okay, I see. So this show is from 1965, which again, I've heard of it before, but I've never watched it. American television soap opera that aired on network NBC. Damn, it went from 1965 to 2022. That's a long time. And you're saying it's a whole season. All right. Well, I guess I am Joey then. Joey Tribbiani. VG just flipped green. Why is VG flipping green? Crude should be going down. Crude is... Yeah, still going down. Okay, so VG going up, crude going down, XLE still going down, 0.18. On Friends, Joey worked as an actor on Days of Our Lives in Friends. I'm not going to lie, guys. I still don't get what the hell you guys are saying. I really, you guys have completely burned my brain cells today. I don't know why we couldn't just say Joey from Friends. You guys know I don't watch shows, bro. I don't. You're talking about a show within a show. It's like, well, I barely watch regular shows, so I don't know what to tell you there. Bitcoin, though, making its move, 71.4. I don't think we're seeing a bunch of other headlines. It's 11:30 at this point. Either the market goes up or down, but we're not really seeing this. Reuters, Trump tells Fox News it's possible he would talk with Iran. Okay, that's a good headline. This is very similar to what the Wall Street Journal said. Very similar to what the Wall Street Journal says. Asked in an interview on Monday evening about the possibility of negotiations with Tehran, Trump said that he heard Tehran wanted to talk badly. He also said he is willing to talk. Trump echoed his comments at a press conference earlier on Monday, telling Fox the results of the U.S. military operation were way beyond expectation, and that he is open to talking with Iran. But it depends on the terms. He is open to talking with Iran on conditional terms that Trump is laying out. I mean, those headlines mixed with the Wall Street Journal stuff, I think, is where you get a combination of the market at least somewhat saying, okay, this is better news than we expected. Let's get an update on Apple right here, as they had some updates yesterday around the iPhone, the MacBook Siri, and now 25% of their phones being built in India.
Production in the country surged 53% in 2025 and now accounts for roughly a quarter of all iPhones made globally. For more, Bloomberg's consumer tech and Apple managing editor Mark Gurman joins us now. And Mark, let's start with the supply chain element of things. They've done this swiftly and effectively.
Yeah, our colleagues in India are reporting that now about 1 in 4 iPhones are produced in India. This is a bit of an acceleration. About a year ago, it was 1 in 5 iPhones. And a lot of the phone production in India, that pivot happened because of tariffs about a year ago. Apple looking for ways to produce the phones without that potential tariff hit for devices built in China and then imported into the United States. And they're going to continue doing more in India. They've got AirPod development happening there at some point, more accessory development happening there, more underlying component development happening there. So India, not only big for Apple in terms of growth in retail, but also for underlying manufacturing, not only in India, but in other parts of the world as well.
The other piece of reporting you have out this morning, Mark, is about the Apple smart home display. Now, in my house, I right now have a lot of Amazon Echo devices. And so my understanding is that the Apple smart home display is like most akin to Amazon's Echo Show. What are you learning? Why delayed? What's behind it?
Yeah, this device, very much based on the new Siri and the new AI features Apple has been working on. Those features have yet to come to market. Those continue to be delayed. And as those features get delayed, the hardware gets delayed because, as you know, Apple's very much a hardware and software and services integrated company. It's all one kit. It all comes together. So if one piece is not working, you can't release the entire thing. It's a pretty...
The delaying of the smart home stuff is interesting, but realistically, I think the reason it's delayed is because of Siri. Like, if Siri doesn't get the revamp that they need, none of their additional products that essentially are using Gemini supposedly as the foundation model for how Siri will operate make any sense to put out. Apple right there, 261, that's up 0.5% of the day. The interesting thing, though, is they are diversifying away from China as their core manufacturing hub, which is good. 25% of iPhones being built in India is definitely de-risking at least some of what they've had to do with China. But until Siri comes out, like a real modern version of AI Siri, which might be the ultimate agent for 2 billion people that use iPhones. I don't know if we're going to see the street love some of these Apple earnings. 261 on Apple, S&P 680. NVIDIA falling from 186, but still holding 185. 185.60 now. HIM's losing a lot of its momentum, but the overall market being green. Bitcoin as well. 71,400. Also, I found out what you guys are finally talking about. This is why AI is useful. I asked Gemini, what's the connection between Days of Our Lives and Friends? And now I get it. Took a minute. Haven't seen Friends in a while. I know the basics of it, but I forgot the whole... Like, as soon as I saw Dr. Drake Ramori, I was like, oh my goodness. I've heard that so many times from Joey. I remember that. But I didn't realize it was a show within a show. So... whatever, dude. This is why I need my probiotic iced tea every morning. This is why I need my probiotic iced tea. Apple should have bought OpenClaw. Apple should have bought a lot of different companies, or at least had an equity stake in some of these companies, especially Anthropic and OpenAI. The fact that they didn't get even a piece of those is so surprising to me. It also shows the stubbornness of Tim Cook, but granted, that stubbornness has led him to make some pretty good financial decisions. It's just... zero stakes in the foundation model companies is crazy. Because when they all go public, Google and Amazon are going to make so much money off those companies being public. And, Apple ultimately will have to license the tech. CNBC is talking about it. Okay, let me pull that up. NemoClaw, yes, that is kind of the pseudo name for this new open source project. Again, the Nemotron models are NVIDIA's open source suite of models. And NemoClaw has kind of been, I guess, dubbed their open source agents.
NVIDIA is racing to own the next layer up. And of course, guys, we'll be watching this very closely at GTC. We know that, Jensen Huang is a huge fan of OpenClaw and has just been talking about it sort of nonstop over the last few weeks.
All right, it's a good explainer of what he's doing next. Thank you, Deirdre Bosa.
Yeah, that's why the software names took a hit today, even if they didn't deserve to take a hit. But it seems like that was your core reason. Enterprise AI agents taking over and NVIDIA wanting to get a stake now in those agents. Apple can't even do autocorrect well. Yeah, we're going to need a revamp. We're going to need a very strong revamp. I mean, the only thing I use Siri for is setting an alarm. But outside of that, nothing else. PC Guy, thanks for being a channel member. 6,600 shares of NVIDIA burning a hole in my pocket. GTC 26, I hope will save me. I do think GTC is going to give up some new updates. I don't know if it's going to take the stock to 200. Jensen will probably say some good stuff in the short term that'll get the market to react. But at this point, we're going to need, I think, an entire macro paradigm shift for NVIDIA to sustainably hold above $200. Why would they buy OpenClaw when every company has released an alternative? OpenAI just fired the founder. Did they? Oh, no, hire the founder, not fire. And the product's still open source. Yeah, it's more so Apple just having a role in the broader AI ecosystem. I mean, because now Apple's depending on their own internal AI researchers and developers to bring AI to life. And there's really no meaningful collaboration with the foundation model companies outside of Gemini that they have a more strategic. I know they partnered with ChatGPT 2 years ago, but I mean, nothing's really happened with that. So, Apple's stubborn. They don't like doing stuff until they have full confirmation that they're going to win. But I feel like this one was just them waiting a long time before figuring out what would, meaningfully come of what they were doing. And then here's the update on that Meta former head of AI who just raised $1 billion for his new startup.
With Meta in particular, let's start with the vision for AMI. What is it they're seeking to break through on?
Sure. I mean, Jan LeCun has been a long critic of LLMs being the best way to advance AI. So AMI is a new company that's focused on world models. The idea is that they are going to be able to integrate with enterprises like robotics companies or car manufacturers and help build AI that can operate in the real world versus being something that everyday consumers interact with via chatbots. And so less focused on text and think more around spatial data, visual data, and trying to operate, again, in real world and real industries.
And maybe even the future of defense. There are so many interesting parts to this story, Natasha, that I want to dig in on. But what caught my eye is someone who sat in New York. They're not going to be in Silicon Valley. This is because they really feel that there's, what did he call it? That they've been LLM pilled there. This is a European story at its heart, but it's also a non-Silicon Valley one.
You're exactly right. I mean, this is one of the largest venture rounds raised ever in Europe. And it is actively one that has not included a lot of the traditional Silicon Valley investors. When I asked Jan about that decision, he said that Silicon Valley investors were looking for really high ownership in the business. And he believed that it was important to try and attract talent that wasn't just focused on building within the large language models, which means not going to where people are working for Anthropic, OpenAI, even his former employer, Meta, and trying to go to different geographies. Now, I did ask if he will have to raise from Silicon Valley eventually, and he said he's definitely open to that for his next round.
It's interesting. Mira Murati, $50 billion. She raised some money from Jensen today. We don't exactly know what Thinking Labs does, and now you have another AI startup raising $1 billion. So the money is out there, the capital is out there to flow throughout the ecosystem. now I think investors just want to see a more meaningful source of ROI, and as a result, that props up the entire industry. S&P right there, 680.8, up 0.3, NVIDIA 185, and then Bitcoin 71,000. It looks like you had an attack in Canada. Canadian police increased security around U.S. embassies. There was a shooting at the U.S. consulate in Toronto being investigated as a national security threat. Canadian police, we cannot officially say if this was tied to Middle East tensions. There's some stuff that happened in New York yesterday that also wasn't pretty in regards to protesting and, more and more people kind of being on the side of the Iranians and expressing that yesterday. So I think you might see more of this stuff happen across the entire world as this war continues. Ondas, is that green on the day? Ondas is up 5%. Yeah, guys, I don't think we're going to have the Red Cat CEO today, but we'll probably get him on later this week or next week. And I'm definitely looking forward to talking about him because, he is likely seeing what's happening with this war and the impact on drones. And, he runs a pretty big drone company. So probably some good stuff we can get from him when he's on the show. All right. I think that is it for today. S&P, we're leaving on a high note. 681.50. That is very close to the high of the day. If we can get above 681.69, we'll make a new high for today. We'll be back for the close. We will have Oracle earnings. Then we will have Technical Tuesday. I think that's pretty much what we have today. Do we have anything else other than Oracle? Oh, Aero Environment. That's another drone company. Okay, so Oracle and Aero Environment, AVAV. Those will definitely will be two big names we have to look at. There you go. High of the day on the S&P is 681.70. And NVIDIA back to 186. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, so we'll be back on the close. We'll see if this can continue. If it does, then maybe CPI tomorrow is what really allows us to get some strength. But March is generally supposed to be where things get better after a crappy February. And if the sentiment of the administration continues to set the tone that this war will be over soon, whether or not it will be, if the markets buy into that, then I guess we get to keep some of this green momentum. Oil, by the way, falling off a cliff. I mean, if crude goes below 80 today, it's at 83.80 right now, down 12%. If it actually gets to the low 80s or below 80, S&P getting into that 685 range would not be crazy, as the VIX also is taking a hit. All right, word of the day. What do we got? Word of the day. Even though it should be Dr. Drake Ramore, that should be the word of the day, is munificent. Extremely generous or lavish in giving. The foundation made a munificent donation to fund long-term research. Munificent. Is that how you say it? Let's see.
Munificent.
Okay. Back to back. Not bad. Not bad. Munificent is what we got. Hold on. We got Steve Witcoy live. We can't leave yet. Let's see what he's saying. He is the special envoy for Middle Eastern diplomacy. Let's see what he's saying, and then we'll be out.
I think the president is always willing to talk, but the question is whether it would be productive or not. When Jared and I first went on this last visit, and we met with the foreign minister from Iran, our mission statement was all about, would they do a deal? Were they amenable to doing a deal? Would it be enforceable? So in other words, would they keep their word? And would we have sufficient oversight to make sure that they were keeping their word? And on all three of those questions, we answered it no to the president. And here's the reason why. The negotiation opened, Sarah, and I've been quoted as saying this, but I'm going to say it again. The negotiation opened with their lead negotiator. He was there with his deputy, stating unequivocally that they had the, quote, inalienable right to enrich as a nation. They then moved into the material that had been enriched and had been stockpiled, which we regard as a violation. That's part of that stockpile includes 60% enriched uranium, which takes about a week to 10 days to get to 90%, which is weapons grade. So that's what you have to be the most worried about. And when asked about the 60%, the chief negotiator from Iran said, you know, and I know that that's 11 bombs worth of material. So you need to be serious about this. That was the second statement that they made. And then finally, the third statement that they made at this negotiation was that beyond the inalienable right to enrich, they were not going to give to us what they felt we couldn't win militarily. Now, they were obviously referring to Midnight Hammer and saying that there were certain remnants of their enrichment business or protocol
Program
that had remained intact, and they weren't going to turn it over to us because if we didn't destroy it all during Midnight Hammer, then they weren't going to give it to us diplomatically, which was the that was the moment when we really knew that they had no intention of doing a deal with us. Now there was much more. I'm just giving you 3 items that were of substantial concern. But when we came back and reported to the president, and it was our job to get a deal done if it was possible, but it was also our job to give the president intelligence as to whether they intended to do something. And it was very, very clear that they were just not well motivated in that regard.
I appreciate you laying it out again, and I know you have said as much publicly, but there are still critics and Democrats who will say there's no evidence that they were that close and no urgency to move now. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched material. There is no reason to be at 60%, none, zero reason, unless you're pursuing a weapon. So that's the first thing I would say to the naysayers. The second thing I would say to the naysayers is, who actually shows evidence of their weapon? Would a murderer do such a thing? Everybody has known that they have been testing for weaponization since 2003. The IAEA has attested to that. So we know that they've done all kinds of testing on weapons. And it wouldn't be all that much for them to do a World War II vintage type weapon. So we knew that it was possible that they could have a weapon, or they might be close to being able to procure a weapon. And then I give you this other detail that no one seems to want to talk about, which is they could easily have taken the 60% enriched material and made a dirty bomb out of it. That would have been a really easy step. So there were all kinds of reasons to be concerned with where they were. And they claimed that they were coming to the negotiation with Jared and I for good purposes, to explain to them what they needed from an enrichment standpoint. So to start the conversation off with the predicate that they're entitled to enrich, with the further predicate that they've got 11 bombs worth of enrichment material a week to a week and a half away from being weapons grade, and that they weren't going to give to us diplomatically what they claim we couldn't win from a military standpoint. That was reason enough for us to determine that they weren't there for to be purposefully negotiating a diplomatic settlement to this conflict.
All right. Well, that is what the Trump administration continues to say, which is that this was never about diplomacy. The Iranians were not working in good faith. And ultimately, as a result of those quote unquote negotiations, that is when they decided to take military force. S&P 681, NVIDIA 185.80. Again, the markets are pretty much rallying on this idea that the war will end soon. And Carolyn Levitt will be on in a couple hours. We'll see if she continues to echo those statements. And if she does, maybe the markets can continue onto this momentum. All right, I'll be back for the close. We'll have Oracle, we'll have TT, and we will keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys in a few hours. Bye, everybody.